Point, new game. Load slot 1 to 2. Mama, hello. Are you here? Self-voicing disabled.
Hello. I also posted it to the server, Crow. So, ha. Saying that, hey, I was doing 2 streams. Said I was getting this done. Usually it sounds like cheating when it's not. How you doing, voice? Give me a moment. I got a refill on my meds, so I gotta take them now. Voice, maybe you could put it to rest. Is it cheating if I stream 2 times in a day? Even though I gave warning? Ha. 2v1 Crow. You lose. Yes, I did the lunges. Before Christmas, there is a slur, will see your face. Alright. So this is where all the new stuff starts coming into play. No, I'm not gonna do them again. I already did them. Hello, are you here? Yeah, come in. Shoving the door wide. I'm home. Boys, were you here earlier when I was, Look. I made her cute. I see your logic, and I'm telling you that logic is wrong. Mama approached with a hand on her hip. She was still wrapped in a cardigan, ready to not be home any second. Mama's very pretty. I hope you've had a good day. Did you see your friends? Yeah, I did. That made Mama smile. Come on, Franny, where'd you go? So you did. You got out of the house and into the car. It was still toasty in there thanks to Mama's trip from work. You were allowed to sit in the front at that age. The journey for our phone began. Tapping a finger against the wheel, Mama made light conversation. Actually, I never did get to hear what color you wanted. Are we taking the traditional route? Black, silver, or maybe it's impossible to decide until you see them in person? I'll try. Who knows how many colors they'll have on offer? Might be best not to get your hopes set on a certain favorite. Favorite. Mama was mama enough to know how you felt about colors. You had one absolute favorite. It was Gunberry. Same as it always was. You were loyal to your love. Mommy, you went directly to the nearest phone store. Living up on a mountain meant over an hour away could still be counted as near in some technical way. The next town closest to your town wasn't huge either. If someplace was anywhere around Golden Grove, it would be like Golden Grove, woodsy and halfway on a mountain. I see it, voice. But which car? Because in our life we've seen, I think, a total of 3 cars. All different, by the way. It was our parents' car, Cove's dad's car, and the car that Baxter drove. One with the leather seats. Whose car was that? Was that Baxter's? I think it was. It makes sense, though. Back when Cove had a cast on? Kid, then. Kid. Parents' car, because that's the only car that we were actually in, was our parents. Technically we were in Mr. Holden's car, because he drove the one day. I don't... So it's one of the parents' cars. At that point, though... Yeah, I think I also went and looked up what our parents did too, didn't I? And our parents make good fucking money. Yeah. Then it was... I don't know. Mr. Holden also makes good money too. With how much money he has for all those 20 bills. I am not sorry for that. But I think I need to Google this.
Oh, how?
Hi, Gabby. How are you doing? Discord said that your mom was my sidekick, so. So. Sir, I'm trying to figure something out, but it looks like there's like no information about it either. Okay, so I can't find what I'm looking for. I'm trying to figure out if they're. So as we know, clean it up. Where's it? I think we need to put a blue pad here. Hi, corpse. Nope. So we don't really know much about the MC in this game. We know a lot about the MCs from beginning in Hawaii, though. You'd have to drive half a day to reach the actual city. But you made the trip. You got to the store, you picked out your very first phone, and it was smart. Your cell had a touchscreen. There wasn't a keyboard, buttons, or anything. Corpse, Shadow does not suck. He's a sweat at the game. This thing can do way more than calling or texting. You can play games, watch videos, and go online anytime, anywhere. The employee who helped you get it made sure to pile on the praise. Mama joked it might be time for her to upgrade. And then she had to politely let the worker down when they took that possibility far too serious. The setting was about her child. After deciding the make and model, you finally needed to answer the question Mama had been curious about the entire day. What color would it be? There wasn't every color in the rainbow in the shop, but they had more than the 3 most common styles, so you picked. I'm not lying. There is a clip on his channel proving it. With how many freaking kills he got. Oh no. Out of everything you could have done, that was kind of random. It seemed right though. The phone seller person made 110% sure that your new state-of-the-art device was ready for use before you walked out the door. Why are you like this? Turn all the default sounds to vibration. It was dark outside when you and Mama left. The car humped as it zoomed over the clear roads ahead. Here, take my phone, add in some emergency contacts. I want you to have Mr. and Mrs. Lynn's number plus Miss Boulan's. And don't worry, I've got Tamarack's and Q's numbers in there. You can jot those down too. Made sense to you. I'm so sad sport. She got the touchable screen replaced pretty recently though. The cars got out of control. It had started to look entirely frosted over. The phone in each hand, you press a button and tap the front. The dual devices filled your face with light. It was captivating. It was slow going, clicking through Mama's contacts and punching the exact numbers over on a different phone. One by one, your people list filled out. The job was still done way before you got home, and Mama still had suggestions. Why don't you try messaging Tamarack and Q? Or Q. Let them know about this development. If you don't want to, I can make sure they're aware tomorrow. It's important that you can stay in touch. She wants you to text them? Was that physically possible? Text a Tam, text a Q, text a Tam and Q. Play it around your phone, put the phone away. Text them both. Your fingers were shaking. You used a phone before. You weren't 5, but that was always borrowing someone else's. This time, it was all you. You could say something to someone, and they could say something in response, and they could keep it. And that could keep happening for eternity. Whatever you sent now would be your first official text for the rest of your life. Was this how it felt to really be a teenager? Probably. Start with Q, apparently. Yeah, that was perfect. You definitely weren't gonna forget it by tomorrow. Biting your lip, you switch over to Tam's contact. You can message her while waiting for Q. I'm not gonna question it, okay? was guilty. You got a reply. Q saw your text. You left a single message, Tamara chat, to see what they said. It simply read, I'm blocking your number. They were not kidding. Q wouldn't accept nonsense from some stranger. You didn't have time to lose. It's Franny, Q. Please don't block me. Did they get it? Was it too late? Nice try. Friend doesn't have phone. I'm blocking you. Alright, now they were joking. They're such a cutie. You can imagine the exact smirk Q had on their face. But you couldn't say anything else back before you had a new unread message. Tarek saw your text. You let the short Q chat to see what she'd said. Is this Fran? Yes. Oh my god. She was so cute. If you listen closely, you could hear the echoes of Tam's gasp all the way from Golden Grove. Tarek got the story of how this happened. Oh my god, we can text all the time now. It's gonna be so much fun. You had a phone for 10 minutes and already had to juggle texting with 2 people at once. That felt pretty advanced to you. Q and Tarek both got the story of how all this happened in separate messages. Cool. Now I'm gonna have to actually look at my phone. More messages flew back and forth while the drove raced by. What was left of the night did too, before you realized you were falling asleep. After everything that happened, you were wiped out. Tomorrow came too soon. The sun made a pretty weak effort to rise above the clouds that morning. Before leaving your room, you'd had to get changed, but the question was, into what? Yeah. For those who don't know, the fancy time party was very, very fun. Did it something comfortable laid back. Oops, didn't mean to click on that. I wanted to click on that. You dropped your PJs in the hamper, checking yourself out in the mirror there. Then you left your room and leapt down the stairs. Why not? Then you crossed the creaky board where the lighter floor panel switched to darker wood. You'd officially entered the front room. You were alone there in the living room and in the entire house. Mama had left for work not long before then, right after you'd eaten breakfast. She had a longer commute than you, and you didn't need your mama to be late in order to see you off to school, though she would have been tardy if you had wanted her there. And actually, before Mama walked out the door, she hadn't forgotten to give her annual reminder. There's only one first day per year. Enjoy it. You giggled over Mama's typical mama-ness while fully letting that little fact of reality sink in. I decided to walk around the ride that day. On days when you rode to school, your wheels of choice were a bike. It was not the same bike you came to town with. You long outgrown the original. But it was the only kind of ride you wanted to use, so you got another that was right for your size. You adored your side wheels. Riding was more than a hobby. Your mind wandered as you bundled up in extra layers. The plan was... My turn Q first thing. It had to be up to you. Q only went out of their way to go with you if you were the one who asked them, and Tarek sometimes liked to walk by herself. But for the first day, you're sure you could get all of you together for the trip. You packed your lunch, closed up your bag, and slung it over one shoulder. Then you went to greet the freezing autumn dawn, and you were instantly slapped by a howling rush of wind that got into the exposed slivers of your skin with what seemed to be heat-seeking precision. Ack! Sputtering and laughing, you fought to get the door that was shaking from the same gust lock behind you. When you felt the telltale click, you backed away. At the same time, you checked to make sure your earmuffs hadn't blown away, or at least that it hadn't gone all crooked. Your nostrils filled with the distance and the rain when you crossed over the stone path. Had it come and gone when you were sleeping, or was it still gathering the weight it needed to fall? It was impossible to tell. You pushed open the gate separating your yard from your neighborhood at large. A As soon as you placed a foot into the cul-de-sac, you were hit with a bigger shock to the system than the chilling breeze. Taryn backed out from behind the bushy border of your house like it was suddenly 4 years ago, and you were meeting her for the first time. The main flaw with that comparison, that she hadn't done it on purpose. Fran was going to be startled by that jump scare. It should have been you, but there was Tamrick. Her eyes wide and her arms taut at her side, her cheeks were raw red. Though you doubt that color came from the cold. I didn't notice he'd come out until I heard the gate. It would have been more awkward if you caught me trying to hide in a bush, so I had to, This is still embarrassing, sorry. You can only stand there speechless. You'd gone from ice cold to burning up. Scottering and bursting was right, annoying but too. You frowned at her. Surprises like that really bothered you. It was too much, you laughed. What on earth? What are you doing? Morning, Tam. Come on, Tam. It's not that embarrassing. You're too cute, Tam. I'm high. Gotta stop meeting like this, you joked. Well, I wasn't expecting to see you like this, you said sarcastically. You trying any good treasures down there? We gotta stop meeting like this. Tamrick wrinkled her nose at you, seeing the humor in the situation. Much as she tried to pretend otherwise. It's not funny. Gave her a friendly grin. Of all the good things you got to enjoy living in Golden Grove, she was at the top of the list. Tamrick Boomon couldn't be described as anything other than a good thing. Unless you'd say she was an amazing person, which was true. It went quiet then for a second too long to be normal. A frog. A frog? There's a frog right there, under the hedge. Her arms remained glued to her torso, but she pointed a finger towards the ground. It's so close to a road, I wanted to make sure it didn't die or anything. A lot of frogs have declining populations. That's nice of you. Thanks. A steady exhale left Hamrick's mouth. She gasped by regaining some kind of composure. The even breathing lasted just long enough for her to inhale one more time. Then Tamrick's hand twisted her torso head in opposite directions to check her back, switching between glancing over the left side and right, in the cycle. She had to double check that she didn't get dirty. Oh. Realizing how the compulsion might have looked, Tamrick stopped to defend herself to you. She didn't need to, though. I wouldn't want to show up to class with something stuck on me or a stain, you know? Tamrick, you're perfect. You look amazing. There's nothing there, trust me. I know, it's fine. It looks like you're dancing. You look amazing. What? You're the one who, don't worry about it. I just hope I'm average. You're way more than average. Thanks. Right then, Tamrick took a minute to really look at your first day outfit, checking out each piece and considering the whole they created. You're good too. More than good. You make everything work for you. You're a fashion CEO or something. She grinned, braces twinkling. When Tamrick deftly offered a hug, raising her arms halfway up. It's pretty delayed to be part of agreeing, but she wanted to make the attempt anyway. Gladly accepted her embrace. As he leaned in, she did the same. Your outstretched arms started together into a cozy knot. Tamrick's hold was soft and sweet, just like her. She rocked you both back and forth. That made you giggle. She let some of the enthusiastic squeeze, but remained one of the Golden Grove's best hugger. When it was over, Tamrick was grinning wide. Happy first day of school. It was a thoughtful attempt. Tamrick didn't have the acting skills to sell you on the idea that she believed what she was saying, but she knew you actually believed that. He smiled with enough positivity for the both of you. Do-do-do-do. Gonna die if we don't have any classes together. Me too. We could share funerals instead. You and Tam, ever a pair. You shared a wire chuckle before the mystery overtook your demeanor once more. Tank found a second wind for the dooming spiral. I don't know my teachers yet. What if we get someone terrible? We'll have to survive somehow. You started out so confident, but the more the reality became, your reality, the bleaker it seemed. Still, Tamrick was going to be there for the start of a new year. You can count on it. Do you want to walk together? The question shot out hastily. Hi, Bartz. She went forward as if she was running off a diving board before fear fights could set in. I wanted us. That's why I was actually coming over. Before everything with the frog and us talking and all that. Of course we're walking together. Great. Having you by your side was everything she needed to enter the lion's den that was high school. Except Tamrick's gaze began to wander past you, past your house, and towards the red building beyond it. Are you inviting Q? They come if you're the one asking. Q likes you. and it'd be kind of like the old days. How crazy would it be if all three of us went to school together again? I can't remember the last time we did, but her voice faded into nothing. Whatever she wanted to express never coming through. Jen was not interested in playing leader anymore, at least between you and her. She wanted to find options both of you could agree on. When it came to her other neighbor, though, Tamara flipped back and forth. Sometimes she didn't even want to try vocalizing her thoughts around them. Other days she was extra stubborn and making her preference perfectly known to Q. That morning it seemed she was going with the giving up before making an attempt strategy. Of course, we gotta invite them. It's still a tradition. Okay, yeah, we're doing it. But we better hurry. I don't want to be late. Yep. Q was going to be springing out from the foliage anytime soon, but did have an idea where they might be hiding. You and Sam cut through the grassy aisles between your house and the Lynn's. It was the shortest path to where you needed to be. The full group had to be reunited before beginning the trip to school. You usually made it into your friend's fenceless backyard. Q's old hideout stood tall among the agile trees that backed it. It's creakier than it used to be, and you were more likely to wind up with a splinter by climbing on it. But the fort hadn't been abandoned. Though something around had been discarded. Laying carelessly in a pile of leaves underneath the towel, you could spot a black and yellow gym bag. A bandana was tied in a knot around the strap, and on the top level of the structure lay the bag's owner in as much of a heap. Q was holed away in the child's play place they could barely fit in from the knee down. Their legs hung listlessly out of the entry hole. The dark gray jeans and matching colored sneakers made it look as if a sheet of dry rain was pouring over the edge. So much for the hide part of Q's hideout. The intern shared a side-eyed glance, then simultaneously you moved your sun stairs to the motionless lump once more. Morning. Oh, Starlight, guess who? Starlight, I know you know we're down here. Hi, good morning. No one's home. Jen settled her hands on her hips with a sigh. Rather than being dissuaded, Q's own stubbornness was feeding into hers. Yeah, that was basically what you've been expecting. Clearly, Q needed further convincing. Hewlett, please come down from your balcony. Q's face lifted, and they were unable to stop themselves from laughing. They instantly cut off the energy they'd expended to raise their head, and it dropped down with a dull thud. Then a long grumble drifted from the top of the tower. This wasn't going to go their way no matter what. Who allowed you people on my property? You did. Will you quit it? I'm not going to let any of us be late on the first day of school. Things were getting desperate then, and the clock was ticking. Q, you are going to get off that. When all else failed, she always had one option at her disposal, throwing things. Jen picked up an acorn and tossed it at Q's vulnerable legs, made contact, bouncing weakly off their left calf. This was an insult purely in the goal of annoyance, and bother Q it did. What is with you and throwing crap? It works. She was already poised with a fresh twig in hand, daring Q to give her a reason to toss it. In that moment, Tirik had become fearless. She would not hesitate. It was incredible. There's lots out down here. I won't run out of ammo for 100 years. Yeah, and school will be over by then. So I guess that's it? You're not coming? No, I'm going. They were serious. Hooray! It wasn't so strange either. Q did want to go to school, obviously, but they also didn't want to keep ignoring their neighbors. That wasn't like them. Kind of. If there was some other random classmate who showed up, they would have pretended not to hear them for eternity. Though you would have stayed for forever in that case. You weren't leaving them behind no matter what. Except Q didn't climb down like a normal person, no. And they didn't jump either. They just sort of let their body slip forward inch by inch until gravity took over and they plummeted out the doorless entryway. Q's feet hit the ground first. There was no attempt to catch the weight of their own body. Their knees bent, their torso curled, and they landed in a ball. From a white fox fur hid their downturned face. Their hood was up. Notebook pages fluttered through the air. Q's method of descent had carelessly dragged the papers down with them. They'd already been discarded across the floor of the fort. When each one came to rest on the ground around them, Q slowly unfurled. In the same motion, they tugged the hood off. They stood with perfect poise, simply to show they could. Mind you of a video you've seen once, a time lapse of a flower going from only a seed to a sprouting a stem and finally having its petals bloom, all in a matter of seconds. What's with that look, Foreshadow? Huh? Hmm? I'm not lying. You are a sweat. Hmm. Despite their usual flopping around, Q was still a Terran dancer, but you got your first clear look at their face the whole day. Having that aloof expression directed your way was another positive you could point to about the place you lived in. Q was one of your favorite people. They lifted their hands vaguely towards the sky, closing their eyes. I'm here. Thanks, Q. You meant it. It took you long enough. Thanks for gracing us with your presence. Thanks for gracing us with your presence. In tone crisper than the breeze, Q responded. You're welcome. That's why you bothered coming. Q dropped their hands to their side again. They were only willing to put in the energy to cork their lips into a faint smirk. There was a focus on their dark iris. This is when far past, casually looking in that general direction. Q was staring at you. You've been staring at them too, you suddenly realized. My poor throat. I forgot how much my voice doesn't like reading these. um, so then, offered up a hug. Clapped your offer and smiled wide and leisurely. Slowly, they lifted onto their tiptoes, and gradually they began to lean forward. Oh no. Then Q promptly toppled over into your waiting embrace. Oof. You caught the full weight of the ragdoll suddenly in your care, gripping tight around their narrow frame. Q's arm dangled idly instead of hugging back. Having their entire body pressing into you was more than enough to bring them in close. The rest of their chest and cheek against your shoulder. The both of you were at risk of collapsing into a huge heap any second. Soon, Q shrugged themselves off the same way they might have done with their oversized jacket, except you've been the one wearing them. Tamrick chimed in with a strained noise. The poor girl had wound up a bit of a third wheel in the wake of yours and Q's antics. Fred and I go into school together. You can come too if you go now. While she would have been uneasily, Tamrick found a footing by the end. There was no doubt in her mind Q would accept. She could even give an ultimatum. Though, considering what happened to Sango, she had a solid base of evidence for her theory. For a moment, Q's gaze started to you, then they fixed a typical blank stare towards Tamrick's rare, bold one. Leaning their weight onto one foot, they popped a hip out to the side. It's not like I would have said no. Wow, Q had their joke. It was done. Tamrick could breathe a subtle sigh of relief. She acted tough because you were there. Having someone she trusted on her side was a confidence booster. But Q was autumn air, frosty and untouchable. You had to brace yourself for it or build up a tolerance. Tamrick was far more sensitive to the cold than she had been as a kid. So that was the status quo of things on Acre Road, Oregon, USA. Distance, uncertainty, and tension. Tamrick, Woman, and Kulin were the same age. They went to the same school. They lived on the same street. They had the same favorite season, fall. But they had different personalities, different interests, different priorities, and different social circles. Well, besides you. An unspoken shift happened between them as Q and Tamrick changed themselves. It was something you only felt, only silently acknowledged in your own mind. Q and Tamrick weren't friends. It'd been years since either of them called the other that. The only time they attempted to spend time together were odd occasions, like the first day of school, for example. Could pretend it wasn't true, regardless of if it hadn't been said right to your face. Cul-de-sac kids, the first friend group you'd ever made in Golden Grove, had broken up. It was weird for sure, the way their entire friendship disappeared, and nobody even talked about it. But life just kept going all the time. There never was a specific moment when it made sense to say, hey, I noticed you're not buddies with our other neighbor anymore. Especially because you know both of them well enough to understand why it was the way it was. Maybe one day you'd talk about the bond they used to have. And even if they didn't, they could never be strangers. All of you were always neighbors. If worse came to worse, they'd be there for one another. And for you too. Without another word, Q trudged around the support beams of the fort to fetch their stuff. They didn't so much as glance at the papers their movement kicked about, much less pause to pick them up. The familiar smell of earth tickled your nose when Q dug their gym bag out from a pile of leaves. The scent of forest expeditions, treasure hunting, hide and seek. Nothing related to today's plans. Q simply slung the back across their back and then returned to the front. Again, the pages were ignored. As a kid, Q honestly never noticed when they'd lost something. As a teenager, that had become a selective ignorance. That quirk was one more point of friction between the former friends. Gripping the strap of her bag, Tamrick took on the thankless task of pointing it out. He had already done the unusual by agreeing to walk with her to school, though she thought she'd have more luck today. Cue the papers. I dropped them. You've seen it before, you'll see it again. Yeah, but it looks like a whole lot is written on those ones. Well, if they're important reminders, you should keep them. Give me a moment. Alright. You should keep them. Q passed her by, physically dismissing her words. The papers remind me of something go away, then me remembering it wasn't meant to be. Release myself from the burden of fighting against fate. Be free, my children, they added while flipping backwards to flutter their fingers in front of Tamrick's face. She turned her cheek to them with a serious side-eye. More like the letterer. Tamrick hissed. That was the last of the one-sided conversation. She wouldn't try to reason with that logic. It seemed painfully pointless. It seemed that way probably because it was. Q wasn't gonna be moved by any argument Tamrick made. You knew it, she knew it, Q knew it. They concluded months ago that they'd spent enough of their life gathering lost pages already. Whoops. send their mind out, you want to snatch up the notes. And so you went to the base of the fort. Slowly, and with your back completely turned to Q and Tamara, you took each page into your hand. Naturally, in times like those, you thought back to your first meeting with Q. You have them pick up pages then, too. Only then Q insisted they never lose things. Yeah, they given up trying to sell that one. Then, as previously warned, you stuck the papers into your own bag, finders keepers. You stood to leave, satisfied with the job done. The former owner only snickered. You were welcome to have them. Their laughter told you. Now it was done. Let's get out of here. Q was not getting their bike then. But they never did like pushing the bike around or even going at a leisure pace. It wasn't worth it to them with you and Tamara walking. Then, um, da-da-da-da. You situated yourself vertically in the center between Q and Tam. There, everything was as it should be, with both your neighbors by your side. Well, maybe it wasn't exactly perfect. The kind of friction came from the way you fitted yourself in the middle of things, possibly in more ways than one. But you weren't willing to go forward differently. Both of them were important. It was then that together you left the old neighborhood behind. Your first day as a high schooler was waiting on the horizon. City 3 passed by the Murray house, the yellow one with the fence Ren had nearly outgrown. Ren took his own front street into town. He didn't come back here. Some mornings you ran into him part way to school, most times you didn't. These ever-rolling hills outside the cul-de-sac remind you of your first day. First day of school. You've been a little whirlwind back then. Tarek and Q had been there, riding the same high. Seemed like your attitude about this would never change no matter how many times you go through it. Thank you for the hydrate. You glanced over at the people with you. Lynn and Tarek Lynn. That part wasn't different either. But besides the obvious fact that those two acted differently as teenagers, Tarek's steps were short and many, stuttering motorboat, trying not to be swept away by the current. He simply rode the waves. They wandered along lazily. Short arch of Main Street rose in the distance and made it out of the neighborhood. Walking along the sidewalk, you got a glimpse of your reflection in those store windows. Shop glowed from within, eager for a new day. Your face was just as bright. From there, you took a turn into Golden Grove Park. Using that to cut straight through town was the fastest way of getting to the middle high school building. It was bustling between the rows of trees. You could spot silhouettes of locals moving about. Elderly residents were on morning strolls, trying to stay spry at their elevant age. Less old but still fully grown people were on their way to work or taking their dogs out for a quick walk. And then there were more teens like you, schoolbound. Nobody got in each other's way. This park was full of loops and alternate paths to get around. If you could see the park from a bird's eye view, you'd bet it looked like a tree itself. The roads created a dark wood trunk and branches. Leaves of normal sized real trees would mush together into the foliage of a single massive tree. You chatted about what might be ahead of you. The park was a place for peace for Golden Grovers, whatever you call them, a break for the mind and the senses. It was definitely your last moment of calm before the real excitement. And then you flinched. A hefty drop of water splattered onto your sleeve. It seeped deep in. You felt its dampness against your skin. Okay, there's the answer to what you'd wondered since first coming outside. The rain hadn't come yet. It had been building this whole time, and now it was ready. You love the rain anytime anyway. You're gonna miss it being stuck inside. But the relaxed atmosphere dissolved in water. Around you, park goers scrambled for cover under canopies or made a break for the shops of Main Street. Jeremy let out a high-pitched yelp. It shook the park. You saw a couple droplets burst midair from the vibration. Rain thumped against her head again and again. It was a bold, sparkling target. She tore open the flap of her messenger bag and dug around frantically. Tarek would have an umbrella in preparation for something like this. You're positive on that. Q merely tugged the hood over their head. You couldn't come up with a single memory of Q struggling with a storm. An event like this was not going to be the first. They raised their arm towards the opening sky. Hey, when it rains, it pours. I'm not gonna let this make me a total mess. She was absolutely determined not to show up to school looking like a drowned puppy. Some bad weather wouldn't defeat her. Sarah grabbed hold of what she'd been so desperately searching for. Just in time, her bangs were beginning to stick to her forehead. She popped open a pastel pink umbrella, its lacy trim matching the edge of her shirt, letting out a sigh. Sarah pressed the handle close to her chest. She was amazing. The scene could have been a Victorian era painting come to life. Get over here, Fran, before you get wetter. It's a bad time to play in the rain. Damn, there's like no in between. Oh, that's good. The weatherman is a liar. Yep. Yeah. Flew the rest of the way to school. By the time he arrived, rain was coming down in sheets. The world blurred, obscured by a constant stream of water. Hard edges seemed to flicker back and forth as drop after drop exploded against them. Made your school of 3 years look otherworldly. The absolute crowd of people gathered on the campus added to the effect. Hundreds of teens had to get in there, and the weather beat against them as easily as anything else. Some students pushed and cursed their way through this mess, while others laughed and skipped in puddles. You joined in yourself. You slammed your palms into the big metal button that opened the door. Alongside Key and Tony plus a bunch of kids you couldn't name, you entered the school. But you weren't safe yet. You had to get out of the way. More students desperate to get in were on your heels. Somehow you were going to have to navigate the crowd carefully. Hundreds of shoes had dried in the weather with them already. Dirt and dead leaves mixed with water to create the world's worst slip and slide across 10 feet of the hallway. Managed to glide into a gap between lockers while breaking your nose. Nearby, turning aside, she shut her umbrella with a swift click. The damp conditions meant her hair had started to frizz into a puffball. It was a lot like when she was in elementary school. We did it. Q got through okay, too. They flicked their hood off again. I didn't want to be here today. I told everyone that, and look what happened. Their arms rose high. It showed off how soaked they were. Mom hates when I get wet and cold. She's sure gonna regret not letting me stay in my room for the rest of my life now. You got out of the rain, but the door kept getting flung open so often that the hallway wasn't any warmer than outside. It chilled you to the bone. And thinking of the door never being closed more than 30 seconds, someone else fell through. A burst of green appeared against a black brush of autumn oranges, reds, and yellows. Comeback boots screeched to a stop. An ivory-covered dress swished. Serenity Shaw, an 8th grader extraordinaire, had arrived. Hi, Serenity. Hi, Tamrick. The two reached for each other, linking hands. Tamrick and Serenity were a pair in many ways. Hold on. Anyone was wondering, I'm trying to get a present done while also doing this. They both had unusually long names. It'd be easy to cut them short. Many students did, but Tarek and Serenity said their friend's full name every time. They were also girls, sort of. Serenity was a demigirl. She, her, and they, them were good. They switched between pronouns pretty much every sentence. Then they grinned your way. Hey! There are your friends. She's close to turn to. Hi, Serenity. I can't believe I'm friends with high schoolers. That make Tarek and you. Not cute. Though she was definitely aware of who they were. Everybody was. The small Serenity paid respects to the star of Riverview's halls. Despite never being close, Q had known of Serenity's existence for ages. As always, their localness topped yours. He and Tarek ended up having the same first official experience with Serenity. Both come to know them in 7th grade when Serenity entered middle school. So a year behind you and your neighbor. Physically, that didn't change much. They had classes in the same place as you, Q, and Tarek. But when it came to school politics, that was a different thing entirely. This was major. Middle schoolers and high schoolers were not friends. Not usually, anyway. You're gonna be invincible this year, you know that, right? Seemed like they were thinking the same thing. You know I'm still uncool as a high schooler, right? They giggled. You're welcome for the cred. I'll tell all the graders you're so awesome. And you got lockers closer to the front. I've still got to go to the ass end of school. Peace out. What? She was only 13. Serenity shouldn't use the word ass. Q continued not saying a single word as Serenity swept on by. We should go. Steps in sync, the three of you speed walk towards your own lockers. The cul-de-sac kids were still sticking together. Unpacking your school info, you search for the most crucial parts. Q sent over a packet a dozen pages thick themselves. Hey, who's your homeroom teacher? They leaned in closer. That question was aimed directly at you. Sarah could probably answer too if she felt like it. You'd already been looking, and you found your answer. Homeroom teacher, Mr. Murray, room 28, another Murray class that hadn't happened since 5th grade. And it was a true Murray, not some other random guy with the same last name as the Miss Murray you knew. The only teacher Murrays in Golden Grove were a married couple with 2 kids. Managed to get both before your standard education ended. Some people in town said that was good luck, others didn't. So I would wish you the very best in your time of hardship. It's Mr. Murray. Mr. Murray, I've gotten 2. Their eyes narrowed at you from over their winning ticket, also known as a schedule sheet. I knew it was the Murray's favorite. Taryn pushed herself to keep up, speaking over the din. Yes, friend, same homeroom for the whole year. She skipped along. If there was room and no one could see, she would have left. I'm in Mr. Murray's homeroom too. Wait. That means it hit your friends at the same moment. Q and Sarah turned to one another somehow. At every possible combination, you'd ended up in a homeroom together, all 3 of you. They're doing this on purpose. Totally. For sure, someone has to be pulling the strings here. Q groaned, Tarek sighed, and you contemplated the mysteries of the universe. The group moved on from that as they kept pushing through the hall. Searched over the pages with extra interest. Besides homeroom, there were other core curriculum classes: science, math, PE, English, and the second language. Since actually had a choice with the last one, 2 choices specifically: Spanish or French. Those have been the options since middle school. Tarek had always taken Spanish, and Q went with French from the start. You didn't have to ask them to know they did the same this time around. You decided on why not Spanish? You tried fell more into sync. Each of you called off class sets and other teachers you had. Math the second period, English with Mr. Glenn, a session with study hall. Back and forth, back and forth. It was like a game of tennis in the middle of the school. The shape of the year, the good and the better, began to form in your mind. ninth grade would be the same. Last in those electives, there are several options for that, ranging from a student's only chance to explore their creativity to treating teens like many adults, even more than regular classes did. Your friends were perfect examples of each end of the spectrum. Q signed up for work experience and intro into business. Seriously, those were electives and Q was doing them. Turning down a job wasn't enjoyable for Q. They saw it as a chance to get something worthwhile out of their days and was joy. When school was finally over, Q wanted to be ready to support himself. Besides, they couldn't handle anything that required imagination or group effort. Their true hobbies were kept nice and safe out of school's reach. As the exact opposite, Tamara had been getting into scrapbooking in her spare time. She decided that was good enough reason to join yearbook. It was another way to explore memory keeping. Her elective was the same as it was last time and the time before that, orchestra. School orchestra, Tamara played the cello. Electives were meant to let students be themselves, to decide on their own what mattered in their education. However, 2 classes some days a week was not enough to encompass a whole person. People could be into a lot of things, and they could choose electives they didn't like for tons of reasons. The packet between your fingers listed every elective in review peak existence, starting with art foundations. I'm randomly clicking. When it was your turn, you shared your electives with Q and Turner. Ryan, we should totally show up in suits one day. I don't have a suit, but we can get some. You and I are young professionals. Q closed their eyes, putting a hand to their chin sagely. Though there can't be two bosses, someone has to be a lowly employee. I think that's you, sorry. Then the conversation shifted. You got a reaction to your other choice. Wow. I've been afraid of drawing for the teacher since 5th grade. Wherever you make, it'll be magical. Honestly, that would be pretty cool. If you weren't being graded on it, since you are, it's repulsive. For me, it's bad for me. Probably still have a good time, friend. Don't worry too much. After going over your entire set of classes and sections, you find out that you have periods with Q, whichever Q, both, and neither. If it was elementary school anymore, you wouldn't be spending all day, every day in the same places. Then you slowed to a stop. This was it. You made it to your locker, number 109. A narrow blue door that had about head height, identical to the rows and rows of other people's lockers, but still this one was yours. Your own mini room away from home. You'd be able to fill it with all sorts of stuff. Whatever you want throughout the day, you'd have right there. Oh, wait. Tank's feet faltered. Her pink boots caught on each other. Forgot my number after going over all of the classes and everything. Let me check. Tore through pages, trying to get back to where she started. The packet rustled noisily. Q held their own schedule in one hand. They gazed down at it, head and mouth cocked to the side. Figure out why we were walking in the first place. Guess who else has a locker right here? You didn't actually need to reply. Tamrick already had the answer. Me, we're locker neighbors. Ooh, maybe we'll be seat neighbors in our classes too. Our luck has been great so far. I'm somewhere else. Q started to bail just like that. But as they passed by, they whispered to you, visit me sometime. You're invited. But I'll see you for homeroom, fam. Before Q disappeared around a corner, they called out laughing. Hey, text me if you get lost. Someone's got to make sure you make it to class. Yeah, it's us for you. Oh, right. Okay, you could live with that. It was just going to be you and Tamrick inches away every day. That wasn't nerve-wracking at all. That was what you kept telling yourself. If only Q could be there too. Reading the code off your info packet, you twisted the lock. face. Right, left, right again. The grooves on the knob press lines into your fingers. Then the door popped open. You got it. You fit your outer layers. While doing that, you got to know the locker better. Thank you for the hydrate. There are lots of little details, scuffs, and scratches that set it apart from all the others. Honestly, you're feeling attached already. Your first high school locker, it was a milestone in your life. And it was nice that you didn't have to go to the opposite end of school to get to it. Piercing sound shot into your eardrums. The thoughts you've been having were done and gone. The bell. Could be heard in every inch of the school and within 20 feet of the building. Glanced around with purpose, trying to get some idea of where you were compared to where you need to be. Your gaze searched above the rush of teenagers passing behind you. Different kind of movement in the corner of your eye caught your attention. Term was messing with her hair and clothes again. Tiny painted comb magically appeared and dragged it through a bob. She had to be starting her her rain run hadn't left any real damage. She gave you a secret grin, not letting those around you spot her braces. Her brows furrowed in determination. Ready to do this? Giving the locker door a firm push, it clicked shut. You legged it to homeroom with Tamara. Outside class, you linked up with Q again already. You made it on time. You made sure of it. Many people wondered and at you. It was the first day. That and the last day were kind of the only allowed times to run late. Out of the window, you could see rain continuing to fall hard. You might have been able to smell it. A few people had experimented with cologne and perfume for their high school debut. The room itself was basically identical to your middle school classrooms. It was almost nostalgic. You hadn't been away from this kind of scene for long, yet memories of years ago could stir in your mind. You had made a similar point about the elementary school classrooms. Those also stayed the same through 1st to 5th grade. You settled into an assigned seat. Nobody asked where you'd like to sit anymore. You got in the middle row, towards the door. Getting in and out should be a piece of cake. Your friends weren't in the same line. Jennifer got a precious window seat towards the back. She placed her back on top of the desk, hugging it. She still needed to be ready for anything. Q had been sat front and center, the perfect place to not miss anything, or for anyone to not miss them. They hadn't taken the jacket off. Their lion's mane hood had mostly dried by now. Its fluff framed their form. Between those 3 points, it made a scaling triangle. Every chair filled eventually. You looked towards the front. The teacher stood there with his back turned. He was busy writing his name in broad strokes on the whiteboard. Mr. Murray. He circled it, then flipped around. Each feature on his face was clearly defined. His eyes had a gentle curve and a green that popped against his peachy skin. Mr. Murray wore an autumn-themed novelty tie. That was the kind of teacher he was, the type who tried to make learning fun. You could tell from a single look. At least he would have been able to if this was the first time you'd met him. It wasn't. He lived 1 street over from you for the past 4 years. You'd seen him around. Heck, you knew his first name, Rudy Murray. Ren's dad, Shannon Murray's husband, and your new home teacher. A wind caught the light when Mr. Murray lifted his 2 hands addressed in the class. His voice boomed unwaveringly. Good morning, young scholars. As you can see right here, I'm Mr. Murray, your homeroom teacher, but I do science mainly. Some of you might get me twice in a day. I recognize many faces here already. We've shared a Golden Grove long before we shared this class. You're coming away from elementary school, Miss Murray, with the red hair. Point to his shock of blonde hair. Bernstein bumbled or nodded. A few shouted out their love for their childhood teacher. A Miss Murray mention could pull a reaction from nearly the most jaded of high schoolers. Nearly cute did nothing. Mr. Murray nodded satisfied. She's going to be thrilled to hear about this. Her students remain students in her heart forever, no matter how old you get. But between just you and me, you're not elementary schoolers anymore. You graduated to my class now, and good news, I'm the easy one. Since you made it this far already, your last few years of school are in the bag. Mr. Murray threw out that phrase with a wink and nudge inflection. Pretending to dunk a basketball, the 14-year-olds were not so impressed anymore. Somebody coughed. That didn't sound good. Do I go and see what happened, or do I just leave it be? No, unless they actually scream for me, I think I'm good. That sounds about right, right? Right? That's how it goes. Nah, it's fine. Well, before you get carried away, we better do a roll call, don't you think? He loved his questions. Well, he was a teacher. Asking the people here questions was Mr. Murray's little job. Collected a folder off his desk, tapped it with his knuckles. So I'm going to go down the long list of students. When you hear your last name, I want you to raise your cell phone high. Really show it off. What? The room filled with murmuring. At this point, it might as well be a round table discussion rather than a lesson. Was the teacher serious? Actually, yes. I'm serious. Come on now. Mr. Murray really knew how to get that class engagement, for better and worse, but nothing could stop the roll of his call. One poor teen right next to you got stuck as the teacher's test dummy. Mr. Murray pumped them until they couldn't live with it anymore. They raised a hand with a white smartphone in their grip. It was pristine. Maybe that kid's parents took them to get a new phone before high school, too. But the standard was set. After that, the next student's response faster. Boom-in. I'm here. Sharon had her phone in hand since halfway through that first person digging their feet in. She was ready. But in her haste to be here, she lurched forward, knocking her back sideways. Sharon's stash of supplies scattered over her desk. Hey now, that's enthusiasm. Look at how excited education is. Chang's head hung low. She used both arms to scoop a pencil box, napkins, and other stuff back to where it belonged. She's shown off way more than she had for roll call. How about Len? Keelan? Anyone know a person by that name? Miss Murray laughed at his joke. The rest of the room was silent. No one said they were here. No one raised their phone. Chuckles turned to a small sigh. We've got to be fair and square. You can't skip answering. Why not? I'm obviously right in front of your face. And I was at your house like 2 weeks ago, you know? I don't need to show my phone. Face it, you can't pretend this far. Murray, everyone already knows I'm the family favorite. The dad of Q's oldest friend rubbed his chin. Well, what do you think, class? This time he did get a response. Leave them alone. Move on already, and please end it. Refute the loudest cries. Not everyone was on board with such a clear bias. He heard demands to see this out. But there were more than enough support. Q folded their arms. They still ruled the school. Fine, I see that you're here, Len. You watched more than a dozen people play high school show and tell before you experienced the same fate. Second, for any second, you raised your phone over your head. Got you down, second. He moved along to the next victim. When everything was over, Mr. Murray tossed the folder back on his desk, barely stopping to check where it was going. That'll be all. I gotta go look at those phones. Now I know what I need to keep an eye out for. Make sure you keep them put away from the rest of the class. Understand? was actually going to be fun with him around. Did Miss Fairy pull little tricks too? You'd distinctly remember growths and laughs being normal in your old, colorful classroom. I'm taking my time on my ride. The couples think the Murrays were a pair of perfect teachers. We'll do the standard here tomorrow. Mr. Murray, tightened his tie. Serious business is coming now. Next up, I'm going to make sure everyone in my homeroom understands their schedules and where to go. If I can help it, you'll each start this year feeling fully prepared. Please take out your course sheets. Well, since impact their actual school stuff, Mr. Murray kept speaking. He went over how there were sign-up sheets for teams and clubs on the bulletin board in the main hallway. Trials are going to happen soon. If you want to take extracurricular, don't wait. You can put your name down between classes during lunch or after school. Homeroom was brief, not even half as long as a normal class. The goal of making sure every student knew exactly what to do for the rest of the day and the entire year had been ambitious. Time to explain how to get from one area of school to another, the logic behind the schedules, and how on earth to keep track of switching sessions. I fucked up on my gift thing. Fuck. Honestly, it did not totally sink in. There were plenty of students who couldn't grasp it, and a lot who didn't care. After barely 20 minutes total, homeroom ended and the bell rang again. Your first real lesson of the day was science class, right then and there with Mr. Murray. Not only did you not have to rush anywhere, but you already knew the teacher. Other people weren't as lucky. Around you, students were getting to their feet. Mr. Murray directed traffic, offering advice along the way. Remember, this is a biology class. If you're looking for chemistry, then it's biology, because you got to go. This was another part of the day you shared with both Q and Tamarick. The two stayed exactly where they'd been. I think my voice hates me right now. And I can't blame it. From behind, you could hear the tapping of Tamarick's shoe. It was her own type of Morse code. She understood the quiet beat well enough to know what it meant. She was happy. In front of you, Q popped a low peace sigh. They didn't look over their shoulder that draw too much attention. This was a secret message for you alone. The chairs were once again filled to the brim, and Mr. Murray made a second first reading. Welcome to River High School. Welcome to the high school side of Riverview Peak. He tapped at his name already on the board. I'm your teacher, Miss Murray. Since from homeroom, you might want to cover your ears because I'm about to repeat a lot of jokes. They're sound by size. Cute to take no more of this. They collapsed across their desks. Tamarick took the suggestion literally. She smushed her hands against the side of her head. Yeah, you liked him. And Mr. Murray wasn't kidding about repeating things. He made his science-specific students do the phone presentation, too. Then Mr. Murray got into the science stuff. Today was only an introduction lesson to biology, the basics, and you were given bulky textbooks to use for this class. You have science and pages to read on your own time. That was it. The bell rang for the third time. There's still so much to do. The longer the day went on, the more humid it got in the school. That happened when you stuffed a bunch of growing teens into limited spaces. Despite that, they never stopped being cold. Somewhere, a door to the outside would get open, or a window was cracked, or a vent started blowing unheated air. There was always another chill ready to climb up your spine. Running turned to afternoon with you darting from class to class. There were little bits of time in between each session. Your schedule included that as part of your day, but they were not real. Those minutes didn't exist. You technically stopped at your locker and got to see Tamarick, and your arms and legs moved sort of freely. However, there wasn't room to think or breathe. Mr. Murray's suggestion to consider extracurriculars in the time between classes could not happen. You're a bit too busy trying not to be tardy. You wouldn't get within 5 feet of the bulletin board until you had a slightly longer break, lunch. On ninth graders had the same lunch period. That was one part of the schedule every student managed to remember. Tamarick and you also had the same class right before then, so walking to the cafeteria together was easy. That was when the two of you got to stand in front of the school's extracurricular extravaganza board. It was plastered top to bottom in sign-up sheets. They're stapled down with no pattern to make sense of. Anything went anywhere. Anything went there, including putting your club's poster halfway on top of someone else's. Each paper advertised in huge, bold front what they were, and the real go-getter groups added smaller text telling you why you should sign up for their activity. The popular ones were easy to spot. They're the sheets that actually needed a full-size page to fill all the people trying to get their names on it. Most of them barely managed to fill a third of their lines. Tamarick stared at the dozen possibilities facing her, eyes wide, and she rejected them all with a shake of her head. Tamarick explained your inner thoughts for your sake. I gotta focus on electives. The arrangement of the ninth grade yearbook was not the source of her worries. It was her cello playing. Tamarick's music. Over the years, you learned about your friend, how little she believed in her own self. No matter how long she practiced, Tamarick felt incapable of creating her own magic. Tamarick changed tack and looked over at you. She didn't need to see things she couldn't have anymore. Do you know how orchestra is having a recital for family members in a few months? Yeah. My parents are gonna be there. Mom called back and said so. Oh, Doctor and Dr. Beaumont were coming. That was a reason to be worried. Her parents were going to be there in the flesh watching. So a flicker of excitement went off in your chest. They cared about what Tim cared about. Don't worry, Tim. You'll do great. Thanks, Fran. Whatever anyone felt about, at the end of the season, the school orchestra would perform its first recital, and Tamarick's parents were going to be in the audience. Oh, you can look at the sign-ups. She pumped her fist. There could be something fun for you. Tamarick didn't want to rob you of any happiness, and talking about her parents sure wasn't going to do that. So you let her go. Your gaze swept over the board and its many sports teams posters. There were a handful of clubs, too. When counting the electives, review actually covered a lot of things people your age might care about. It got you thinking about some of your other interest and disinterest. You didn't get caught up in that. You looked kind of how many extracurriculars were on display before you even found all the sports teams. But since spending 8 hours in school and even more doing homework, you couldn't imagine some joining more than one or two of these extra activities, if they cared about any. You took a step away from the board. Wait, no, stay there. Huh?
The shout gave Tamarack a shock. Self-voicing disabled.
The shout gave Tamarack a shock. Though someone was no surprise. You both knew that voice. Serenity jogged over. They were breaking the school speed limit. She also found her locker after all. Serenity wasn't wearing their extra layers anymore. Without the black puffer jacket, her only cool factor was the boots. It made it so much more obvious that they were a year younger than you and Tamarack. Serenity was a little sweetie. They didn't say hi. She didn't have the breath to spare for greetings. Instead, Serenity got into a hasty explanation. I gotta get to another class. 8th graders already had lunch. But I need to talk to you, or I wouldn't have been able to think of anything else. Her green eyes stare directly at you. You're non-binary. Uh-huh. Sorry I couldn't tell you before. I don't say anything else. I completely get it. Serenity celebrated and Tamrick joined in. They were happy for you. You all took another minute to chat until you saw something at the end of the hall. You definitely hadn't heard anything coming. A pair of ballet flats moved soundlessly across the floor. An unintentional ironic choice of footwear considering she was a dancer. Prima ballerina in the making, Bianca di Fiore. She strode forward in exact even motions. Her massive curly hair didn't so much as sway. 5X could be balanced on her head and they wouldn't fall. It rivaled Q's poise, not just generally, but even when they bothered to try. I challenged Q, she did. Those two were in the same ballet class, though that was a whole other story. Bianca stopped directly in front of your group, arms folded back straight. She always dressed like a young professional, more proper than any of the other teachers. Mr. Murray's silly tie came to mind. Her blouse and blazer combo was well known in the school. The ovally shape of her eyes and position of her brows made Bianca come across as inherently concerned or pouting. Depending on how nice you wanted to be about it, that didn't mean she actually felt that way. Girls. But right now, maybe she did. The girls turned. They finally noticed what you already had. Tamrick paled immediately. Meanwhile, Serenity reached for Bianca no different than they had with Tamrick. Bianca accepted as eagerly, too. It finally put a smile on her face. This was a win for Bianca. Hi, Bianca. Hi, Serenity. Tam attack. Yeah, she said Tamrick's name wrong on purpose. Bianca mentioned neighbor in 6th grade when Tamrick was a little wildly. Bianca had never, ever let that go, much to Tamrick's embarrassment. Fortunately, Tamrick found the thought of asking Bianca to stop calling her that even more humiliating. One thing was for sure, though. Serenity at Tam attack was memorable. I hadn't seen you all day. It's lunch. Tamrick did her best little Tamrack act, still and silent. Put that girl in a forest and she'd fit right in with the trees she was named after. Bianca left Tamrick in peace. For now, she wasn't after Briarwood, actually. Her sharp stare pointed at you. Here it went again. Is it true, the rumors about you? In the few years you've known her, you weren't sure Bianca had ever sounded that uncertain when talking to you. Don't know what you heard. I only know myself. I'm non-binary, you say them. Okay, thanks for telling me, Franny. I'm not mad about it, it was awkward. That was it. Bianca was Riverview's gal's girl. She collected female friends as a full-time gig. Before this, he had been one of them. According to her, that's why she was panicking now. Because you weren't one of her ladies, so what were you? I honestly don't know if I like her just because of her calling Tamrick the wrong name. You know? Because that's just mean. She has to know she's doing it. Saying it wrong. So that's just irritating me. Makes me just want to strangle. I don't. Does it? Just from her being mean to Tamrick, I really don't like her. didn't hate her for that, the same way she didn't hate you for not being a girl. Hey, you can still text me, Tarek. Serenity, we don't have to have classes together for that. Bianca did not let people off easily. This was why she had a reputation for intimidation. People could make the concept of keeping in touch such a high-stakes event. Sure, later. Thank you. That was enough. Bianca had a lot of friends and a lot of hobbies. Her free time was limited. She waved. Gotta get in the cafeteria. I promised to sew some girls from homeroom today. Bye. Bianca fluttered away like that, or she would have if her clothes weren't stiff enough to automatically reject the concept of a flutter. The second the lunchroom doors swung closed, Randy snorted. She wound her voice up high and let it fly. How the hell are you spooked around that girl? She wants you to like her so bad, Tamara. Do you know how much she talks about the way your hair sparkles? Serenity themselves got a spark about them. She had a brilliant idea. I could tell you a lot. They began to ramble first about Bianca's opinions on Tamara, you and them, though it didn't stop there. Serenity continued about without thinking, diving to wherever Bianca knew she was aware of. Apparently, also one of the many girls your age was torn between two loves and loyalties, Bianca and Kyo. Should you be listening to this? Should someone stop them? But that was when Kyo themselves rounded the corner. Serenity climbed up instantly. Her lips were super glued shut. Tamara put her hands on her hips. What were you saying about getting spooked? Serenity could only grumbled out of the corner of their mouth. This is different. Q's not trying to be my friend. Q came closer. They didn't stop until they were close enough to have become part of your little group. They kept their hands in their pockets and mouth closed, signaling their arrival with their eyes a mere presence. Hi, thanks for coming over. Hi, Q. Jack twisted her shoulders comfortably in the icy breeze Q had brought. Something magical happened when Tamara was around anybody more uncertain than she was. She could remember that Mix Qlin was simply the teen next door. She knew them. I am hungry. I should eat something before starting stream. Definitely should have. Hey. His jacket-covered chest turned sideways. You're signing up for this? The arrival had continued a stream of interruptions, but they're the first to bring things back to the original topic. They caught you directly under the school's bulletin board. Too cool for school, Q didn't have extracurriculars. The concept of that was enough to make their eyes roll. They had their biking and their ballet for after-class activities. Q's interest in those started during childhood. They hadn't known what the future held, that those pursuits wouldn't be done through the high school, or that they would actually be against the possibility one day. Things just worked out for them. It gave Q one more reason to focus on those, rather than anything that might get contaminated by the education system. No, I was only looking. That's smart. You don't need more stuff that's gonna stress you out. It's not a big deal. None of us are doing extracurriculars. They're called extra anyway. Bianca is in book club. Bianca isn't here. Actually, before starting to explain, everybody got it. Between the kids still trying to get into the cafeteria with some going against the stream, the young lady in a headband elbowing everyone in her way. Bianca was coming back already. You'd run into Serenity twice a day too, but there had been some classes in between then. She didn't join her girls. Bianca squared her feet a few strides away from Kyo. Bianca wasn't impressed by them, one of the very few people who could claim that. But instead, they kept those thoughts to themselves. Not Bianca. She got right to her dagger-sharp point. Are you joining tryouts this season? This was about school extracurriculars. You don't say. This was that other story. Those two dancing in the same ballet age group. Q and Bianca both had years of experience under their leotards. A show was set to happen early next year, so the roles had to be cast soon. Not everyone would get to tiptoe out on stage, and even fewer would have starring roles. Are you listening? I asked if you're auditioning for a recital, Q. Bianca kept coming at Q, showing the full range of her intimidating aura of flashing eyes and furrowed brows. And this time, it was intentional. If this was years ago, Q would have had a joke up their sleeve to diffuse the tension. 2014, they had a single word reply. Nah. All of Bianca's blustered, all her posturing, and she only got a nah. Bianca didn't just take that and run. She could stand her ground. Bianca and Q were two of the most popular people in your grade. They were top performers in their matching dance form. There were other things they had in common too when you thought about it. They're dressed in cold, muted colors. At least one person in this hall. All right, then found one of them hard to approach. And their names start with an uncommon letter followed by an I. But that was totally superficial. Kind of a stretch even when it came to what mattered. Kyo and Bianca were opposites. Alright, why not? Don't you want to see if you can make the cut? Don't you want to perform? No, I think I just told you that. Bianca huffed from the depths of her soul. I don't get why you're even in the class if you don't want to do anything. I'm always going to be a better dancer if you don't compete. As harsh as the words were on their own, Bianca said them earnestly. You heard that tone before, plenty of times. A lot of people had used it. Parents, teachers, friends, they had been desperate to get Q to care. You never seen it work for anyone other than you, including today. It's Fran. We do it together. I can't leave. Mystery solved. And then Q was no longer a part of that conversation. To prove it, they started a new one. Or really, they pretended it was still where it had been before. Who decides all this? They smacked the bulletin board. Paper sheets shook. It sounded like kicking a bush. Why are these our options anyway? Where's, I don't know, lacrosse? That's a sport, I'm pretty sure. Bianca could only stand there, arms hovering outward. Mid-explanation, completely at a loss. The quiet forest made of serenity and Tamarick had nothing either. Except for imagining crickets. I have no idea, Starlight. You could ignore Bianca too. Bianca's limbs snapped straight. Frustration was squeezed into the smallest shape possible. When did I ask for your opinion, Franny? The test bump was made massively more embarrassing when a pair of students cut right between Q and Bianca. Hey! They were there for Q, and Bianca was too short to see past their heads. He recognized the teens enough to know there were people who also went to Riverview Peak for years. 90% of people there had. One had the first strands of facial hair over their square jaw. They didn't shave, they left it there, proudly. The other wore a faded band shirt, probably thrifted. Made to think they wanted to be older than they were, freshmen waiting to be senior. What's up, Q? What are you doing out here? We're going to lunch. Want to sit with us? Q's hands sunk into their pockets. The glance they gave those teens dropped the temperature by 10 degrees. Go yourself. I'm serious. Just leave. Sorry. If you change your mind, come over. Now, in a total rejection dampened their interest, they apologized to Q for asking. That's what it meant to be popular. Q could do no wrong. Only others could mess up with them. At first, Joe scurried off. Another group of students filled the open space in front of Q. No one asked what Q was doing with that. As in the people, Q just shooed away. Anything they did brought more attention to themselves. Q groaned when those people asked if they were already sitting with anyone for lunch or not. The entire grade was funneling into a single room, and Q was directly in that path. They couldn't rein this parade. He stopped to see what happened with Q's wannabe rival. She was on the fringes of the crowd. Q didn't have to pretend not to notice her now. It was genuine. She'd been forgotten. Well, but Q, when Bianca turned to leave, again Serenity called out. Bye, Bianca. She moaned, blowing a big kiss at her friend. Bianca looked over her shoulder. She smiled. They silently watched Bianca vanish into the cafeteria. More people followed. A lot more. They just kept coming. Then Serenity caught your attention. They flicked their fingers at you and Tamarick. Her nails were painted yellow to match her outfit. Q would be perpetually preoccupied, and Serenity was giving major hints that they wanted space away from the crowd. When the three of you moved into a side hall, Serenity found her voice there in full. I still don't get it. You should be immune to attitude. You've got experience, huh? Tamarick stopped following Serenity. They rolled their eyes. Come on, did you and Bianca have a fight? Wait, is that what she calls you, Tomatek? Who won? I had to hear this. Serenity heard something, Tamarick shouting. We didn't fight. The thing about Serenity was that she showed current Tamarick what it had been like taking out a 10-year-old Tamarick. Tamarick stopped herself after one outburst. Her eyes started to see if any male migrants were staring. They weren't. When she spoke again, it was a harsh whisper. We weren't close. That's it. Bianca probably doesn't even like me for real. Bianca made up for herself that she'll die if she doesn't act nice to other girls. Stop looking for gossip already. Don't gossip? Are you a high schooler now or a teacher? Jack didn't have an answer for that question. There was one thing she didn't know for sure. That was where her insistent went. I'm not a little kid. The obvious implication was that Serenity was being childish, and that there was the very worst thing a teenager could be. No way. Tamrick and Serenity had a stare down. They pulled their shoulders back and stuck their necks forward. Despite Tamrick being a grade above, Serenity was the same height as her. Sparks shot up at their faces, pulled closer. A millimeter before they bumped noses, Serenity caved. Ninth graders are so dramatic. I'm done. I gotta go to class anyway. Serenity pumped her arms, a celebration of being the most stubborn. That wasn't exactly proving her point about not being a kid. See you later, Serenity. Bye, Tamrick, friend. Serenity scampered off to class. It made Tamrick sigh. The only thing left to do during the lunch break was go eat. Cafeterias weren't a friendly place for the unpopular. Friend, are we getting lunch together? Oh. He turned away from Tamrick to check the status of the hall. Q and whoever had been surrounding them last were gone. Had they agreed to sit with someone, or had Q gone so fed up they tried to escape and got followed? Probably the second thing. They wouldn't ditch you. Glancing at your phone proved it. There's a new text waiting. Q and have lunch together if it was physically possible. That didn't sound good. We gotta go in. You joined the rest of your entire grade in the lunchroom. Oh, dang. It was an absolute free-for-all. A three-ring circus, a recipe for disaster, and whatever other term the adults in your life might throw around to describe a crowd. The cafeteria was one of the wildest rooms on the campus. It was not enough. The line for food wrapped halfway around the wall, and every table was over capacity already. You had more than a few basketball bouncings around. A few teens were sitting directly on top of the tables. That was better than having to eat standing up, you guessed. This was day 1 of the year, and you'd arrived late. Of course, there would be a slightly stale but still safe to serve cakewalk. Finding a place of your own, or to be with your friend, was impossible. Pure survival became the priority. If you didn't make it work soon, you'd be going hungry for the rest of the day. Riverview Peak might have given students generous serving sizes of mashed potatoes and meatloaf if they brought lunch there, but it was stingy with how many times students had to swallow it. Jack tried to snag a seat where she'd fitted. Q was trying to get enough room for themselves to eat. Similar problems for opposite reasons. You weren't totally unwelcome. There are people who would have let you in on a good day, as Q had written, if it was physically possible. But this was a bad day. The benches were filled from end to end. You ate on the outskirts of the chaos. It was practically a party there. Another chunk of school went by in the blink of an eye. Before you knew it, the whole first day would be over. It was true. Your remaining classes just disappeared. For as much as you learned, it happened like a dream. Then the final bell rang for the first school day of 6th to 12th grade. From now on, class wouldn't be special until the last day of school of the year came around. You'd be expected to be productive, not complain, and basically accept this schedule as your life. You made your way towards one of the multiple exits. Staring at the ceiling, your footsteps bounced around the empty hall. Derek and Q had stuff to do and things to see that left you on your own for a little while. You're wrapping up your first day as a high schooler compared to your initial expectations. What a day. Moments from that afternoon spun around in your mind. So much happened. It was fun and exciting. Tomorrow you'd do it all over. You love being in 9th grade. A hand ghosting in front of your face put an end to that thinking. It stopped your walk, too. You didn't want to give yourself a smack on the nose. But the pale palm was familiar. So were the braided yarn bracelets hanging off the wrist. He made those himself. It was an okay way to pass the time on camping trips. There's a limit to the people you knew who went on camping trips often enough to need a surefire method to spend the downtime on them. At the top of the list was the Murray family of 4. Their youngest son, still 2 years older than you, had magically appeared beside you. Ren Murray, who's a junior now, 11th grade. Ren was taller and with longer hair than when you'd first met. Blonde strands framed Ren's face as a veil rather than a helmet. But his chestnut eyes were as familiar as ever. Hey, those 2 letters didn't sound right in his ears, and he cut it off short. Ren cleared his throat, calmed his rasp, and opened his mouth again. Hey. Ren talked in a more controlled way than he used to, and spoke less in general. It started when Ren's voice began changing around 13 years old. He'd rarely come out of that hoodie since then, too. Ren wore that coat like a shield. It had an interesting design, smudges of oranges that almost could be fall leaves, but weren't. They were random splotches. A chip skateboard was tucked under a baggy sleeve. Pushing around a full-sized ride that couldn't go indoors was too annoying for Ren in his older age. Also avoided any possible comparison to other bike riders peers could mention. Yeah, this was a meeting you've been waiting for. Ren Murray, you known him as long as pretty much anyone. It would have been so wrong not to bump into each other at the start of a new year. Your dad is my teacher. Your joke got an airy chuckle. He is. What, for science or homeroom? Both. Looking at you there, this made Ren smile. He raised an eyebrow. You're in high school. Ren said it with the incredulous of winning 10 games of rock, paper, scissors in a row. Not impossible, but not what you call normal. Except, it was normal. It was the most likely thing possible to happen as a 14-year-old. You didn't even have to say anything. Ren just had to be amazed that elementary schoolers he had come this far. Everybody older than you seemed to do that. Where did they all learn it? Maybe next year when Serenity joined you as a high schooler, you feel a little of that yourself, and it totally makes sense. They're the only person younger than you that you were friends with. Considering that had distracted you, came back to what was happening in the real world, it's time to notice Ren's focus had gone off too. Instead of looking at you, Ren was staring past you. You turned your head around. Bianca and her gang of girls were passing through the hall. Ren's rest betrayed him once again. He attempted to speak, came out as pure static. Ren slapped a hand to his throat and held on. He turned the dial of his vocal cords until the noise cleared. Hi, Bianca. She kept walking. Bye. Bianca nipped that possible chat in the bud. Though the girls ignored Ren because Bianca did. It made Ren wilt. His arm dropped. An unquestioned truth of this world was that Bianca was a girl who wasn't friends with boys. The tables had turned since the old days. The Ren wasn't exactly popular with other girl groups, or guys, or anyone else either. In his own grade, he was on the fringes of school society. Ren didn't have luck with the lower grades. Being best friends with someone as popular as Q might have helped Ren's position. Being possible ex-best friends with them was not as helpful. Grasping where Q and Ren stood these days was hard for outsiders, which made it impossible to judge. Those two hadn't stopped being friends, no way. But the student body could at least tell their bond wasn't as rock solid as it used to be. Ren managed to let that go to focus on Yugen. He adjusted his skateboard pinned under an elbow. Hey, listen, I heard. Of course, you understood what he meant. It was the same thing everybody had heard about you. Ren still explained, instantly rambling. You're not Barry. You're using they, them pronouns? People were saying so, and the teacher said it was true. That's right. Cool. Ren was one of the last people you expected to have a problem with. He spared Q when they came out, and never had problems with Serenity. But cool, that's what he said about it. Thanks, Ren. You don't have to thank me, it's normal. He didn't do anything else. He didn't know what to do. Just because Ren started this chat didn't mean he had a plan. Your phone suddenly buzzed. Someone texted you. Relief strained over Ren's face. His eyes closed in peace. You should check it. The sound of wheels against linoleum punctured that statement. Ren dropped his board, hopped on, and rolled off in the middle of the school. Bye. Ren went directly in the opposite direction of the exit. The door you were going for opened up to a long staircase. He was committed to skating. He had to find another way. That obvious rule breaking wasn't something you missed. You weren't supposed to ride a skateboard in the halls. You shook your head. Then you grabbed your phone. It could be an invitation anywhere. Oh, it was Mama. I'm trapped at work, putting out fires on all sides. I won't be home until after dinner. I'm sorry. You should go to the diner without me. Don't miss the tradition. Let Yusuf know to put it on my tab. Love you, Franny. Alright, boys. Guess what? You get to decide. Or someone in chat can decide this. Do we go by ourselves? Or do we get Tamrick and Q? Or do we just bring one of them? Both. Okay. Okay. You begin tapping away at the screen. It's hard to believe you weren't able to send messages like this until yesterday. You'd had to walk around till you found Q and Tamrick in person. Asked Mama to borrow the home phone. Instantly, a now typing bubble appeared. Tamrick had been ready and waiting to hear from you today. Except then it went away and she hadn't said anything. That repeated twice more until, yep, I can go. Is it gonna be your mama and us, or is Q coming too? I'm gonna invite Q, but my mama can't come. She has work. She's just gonna pay. Oh, really? I want to hear about it. I've got to go home fast. I'll meet you at the diner. Talk to you later. Is your mom paying for it? Yeah, I go on her tab. She has work, so she isn't coming. Tamrick is, though. Meet you there. They didn't end it there. Q had one more thing to add. Don't tell my mom this happened. She'll make me pay it back. A grin split your face. This was going to be great. Put your phone away and kept going towards the double white doors. 8 hours hadn't been enough for the muck in the front of the exit to fully dry. The soles of your shoes and the door hinges squeaked as you pushed yourself forward. For a second, you squinted against a wall of pure white. Sunshine couldn't be beaten by the dim, fluorescent bulbs of your skull. Outside, the sky had cleared, as much as it could during autumn. Dense gray clouds had been cut open by beams of light, but shreds of them kept drifting through the sky. Each of the dozen potholes across the parking lot had turned into puddles from the earlier rain. Oils like rainbows of green and purple rippled across their surface. Dampness seemed to seep into your body without having touched a thing. Dared place your hand anywhere, it'd get soaked. The stairwell railing, the reaching branches, whatever. The road was dotted with droplets. Those bits of water were crystal clear and sparkling. You lightly dropped down each step, one by one. Your bag jostled from the movement. It was heavier than it had started that morning. You left at an awkward time. Teens who raced from the building at the first ring of the final bell were long gone. And people who stayed late for practices, clubs, or study weren't going to be leaving for a while. Almost nobody was here. The school grounds were wide open. You took in a breath that filled your lungs to the limit. Then you got on the path that'd take you to the park and towards the main street. From there, you head in the opposite direction of your neighborhood. It was going to be a trek across the entirety of Golden Grove. In the first half of your journey, you passed by people. They smiled and greeted you. Further on, you heard the calls of birds. Flocks of them flew over the forest. They were beginning their migration. Days were short this time of year. The mountains were tall. The sun was already starting to fall out of view when you arrived at the town. At the end of town. In a way, where you stood was the end of the universe. The place where you spent pretty much every minute of every day. It had been for exactly 4 years. The cracked parking lot could easily pass as the surface of an asteroid, and beyond the one station ahead of you, there was only an orange crater that took up nearly your whole view. It'd be even more perfect once night was here. With a starry sky around you, the illusion would be complete. You kept going past a handful of cars. There were a bunch of early diners in the community, but this restaurant had never been popular enough to fill even half the spots. The massive diner sign was perched over you. The building was 2 stories tall, pretty weird for a small town diner. Its second floor was used for storage, no matter how many rumors and other stuff that supposedly happened up there. Last story you heard was something about hiding stolen fine art. You went ahead and strolled in from the vastness. You left footprints along diamond patterned carpet. That wasn't good, you hadn't meant to. Quiet chattering and constant clicking of dishes replaced wind and bird calls. You had been enveloped by this much warmth since you'd crawl out of bed that morning. In an all-American diner like this, there are many possibilities. You could smell breakfast, lunch, dinner, and dessert at once. It was nice and cozy. Its small town charm had won you over from the first time you were there. You knew how to appreciate a good thing when you saw it. Above the rest of the noises surrounding you, a particular voice called out from your side. Friendly, familiar, almost inseparable for this place. Good to see you again. The diner's owner, the local's favorite uncle, Mr. Yusuf. I will not lie. I'm remembering how much doing these games and talking hurts my throat. I will state this. When we don't actively see him in the intro in the first part. I don't know if we'll see him at all in the first part though. So seeing that they actually did give him this a sprite, you know, is amazing. Which also means that maybe he's going to be more important, you know? Also, no lie, he's cute. Ad starts in like 10 seconds, by the way. Uh, that's what you called him anyway, Uncle. He wore a basic white shirt and a thick apron, the working man's uniform. Single buckle on the apron strap shining like a sheriff's badge. Strapped to his chest, it was gold, same as his hoop earrings. Uncle had single-handedly managed the floor for years and hadn't quit that now. If it was needed, he could still balance 4 food platters on his arms without breaking a sweat. Table for 4? He was smiling, primed to welcome you into establishment, welcome you home. This was another of the many adults who were watching you and the rest of the people your age grew up right before their eyes. The first time you met, you hadn't thought the guy at the diner would be a person you'd actually know. Uncle wasn't your neighbor or teacher, and you were 10. Was that right? Are your mama and your friends joining you for the first day of school celebration? No, sorry, you won't get to flirt with my mama tonight. She's busy. Uncle laughed. Teenagers, so bold. He shook his head. You shouldn't mock adults. We're simple people. A bright grin stretched across your face. That was what made it fun. Gentle wrinkles framed around Uncle's feature. His frame settled softly as he picked up menus from the front desk. Come along, I can show you to a good booth. Fell alongside him eagerly. He could have left it to the hostess. You were glad he hadn't. Uncle walked and talked with you. It's on Opal's tab, then? You nodded. She'll pay for it when she can. That's okay. But only because your family are regulars here. It would be an impressive con to come for all these years and then skip out on a bill. Jokes were always on the menu here. You shouldn't let your guard down that easy. It could happen when you least expect it. I've been called a thief before. Thank you for the warning. I'd have to commend that level of planning. Going around the bend, Uncle stopped at a booth in the middle of the line. He had the stacks of menus across the table. You count them now. 4. He had 4 menus at disposal. He had high hopes for how many customers you were bringing in. I'll give you a minute to think. We'll start with water. Water, you blinked. He already finished being the host. Now he was going to bring you a drink. Was Uncle about to wait on you the whole night? You're left alone there to shift around on the squeaky cushion. You should check your phone. It's been a while and your dinner guest might need to reach you. Pulling out your cell, you noticed Q had actually messaged you. Sent a snapshot of a tree. He smiled at your screen. Was that some kind of obscure clue for how close they were? Or did they think it was just worth sharing? Maybe there was a bird hidden among the leaves. But that wasn't everything. Sharon texted too. It was a warning that she would be there soon and to be ready. You could practically hear her hee-heeing to herself as she wrote it. You typed out that you were there and had a booth and to get here whenever. Soon you showed your phone for a limited menu. They'd been totally redone around 6 months ago. The newest thing in the entire restaurant other than the food. The pictures weren't faded and the dishes got displayed at better angles with decent lighting. Completely different font and color scheme was used to advertise the wonders available in this establishment. Yellows and browns out of the 80s had become blues and whites. Seriously, it never looked better. There weren't new options, though. You knew that already. The diner table wouldn't upset their patrons. Some had come for decades by getting too fancy or taking away the classics. He skimmed through 4 pages, and were about to reach the surf and turf special section. The door opened. You heard it happen, but couldn't see who'd come in from where you were sitting. Was that for you? Probably right. It had to be. Just get to the very edge of your bench and try to look past the booth without your head getting in anyone else's way. At the front, you saw Tam. She made it. Speak you here. She was chatting with the usual hostess, Gwen. Uncle had become a waiter, so Gwen had her job back. The hostess gestured a hand towards the seating area and led Tarek's gaze directly to you. Tarek could find her way from there. The destination was right in front of her. Gwen wasn't going to leave the podium if she didn't have to. Smiled at one another. The eye contact hadn't been broken since it connected. Two of you were magnets. Good luck splitting you up once you're in the same place. Tarek did a little skip, jog over. Hi, Fran. Before getting into the booth, she headed her pack off her shoulders. I never get to eat out without my grandparents or someone else's parents. It's kind of cool. Tarek placed her bag on the seat before she could join it. The diner doors flung open. Doors, plural. It was loud enough to be both. There's a set of double doors at the restaurant entrance. Most people needed a single one to get inside the building. It took a certain kind of personality to pull that kind of entrance. Guess who it was? Tarek stayed completely still as you moved to check the front. Hostess Gwen was already pointing for the latest guest to head on in. Hugh had arrived. The gym bag was gone, and they had their jacket over their shoulder. You couldn't remember when you last seen their confetti-patterned sweater in full. Hugh turned. They saw Tamarick not making any sudden movements, and you hanging out from the side of the bench. You waved. They moseyed on over. No hesitation. At the table, Hugh clicked into a maximum attitude position. Arms folded, a single cocked hip, and their head tilted thumbs away. That zigzagging pose meant trouble. I was gonna sit on that side. What? That side of the table where you're standing right now, that's where I'm sitting. Hugh flipped an arm at the messenger bag, saying, pretty on the bench. Tarek stared at that to not have to face Q. She held a wound fist against her chest. You haven't even said hi yet. Hi, I'm Q. I don't like facing the other way. It feels, I don't know, backwards. Well, I'm sitting there already. I was first, so I got to pick. That's how it is. Let's do rock, paper, scissors. No thanks. Seems like she hadn't forgotten how ridiculous it was to her to see Serenity be intimidated by I don't like facing the other way Q. It happened before when Tim got happy or annoyed enough to kick her doubts to the curb. She could be free. The boost would probably only last a day. It was never permanent, but the day wasn't over yet. Sarah kept refusing to look at Q directly. Instead, she slid her back down the bench and scooted in next to it. Q rolled their eyes, and then they got on the seat with Tamarick. Q's mere presence forced her away from the center. She shifted further towards the wall while Q moved away from the edge. Unbelievable. Q and Tamarick were on the same side of something, clearly being on one half of the table, but that almost never happened. Tamarick sat up straight, her back rigid, and her hands gripped the tabletop. Q melted across the surface, resting their head on their arms. Oh, of course, those two had to find some way to still be opposites. Considering you invited both of them to a diner, without Irama to be between them, it was going pretty well. You did always like having them be a part of this event, and Q Tarek wanted to be here for it, for you. And for you, that was wonderful. You would love to think Tarek and Q both felt the exact same way about it, but you'd seen the signs, harsh smiles, and bitter frowns. Caring about one person so much could get in the way of actually being happy when jealousy and uncertainty crept in. Hi, Fran. Hi. Uncle swung by then, carrying a platter of water as if he was a river and the serving plate was drifting down his stream. Hello, Q and Tarek. Welcome in. I noticed you on the way, and I got a couple more cups. He dished out a set of condensation-covered glasses onto the center of the table. Here's your water. A bright piece of lemon bobbed at the top of one cup. Q pulled that towards themselves. Their smile was the same shape as that fruit slice. Thanks, Uncle. Another glasses had more ice than water. Tamarick eyed it, though she didn't let go of the table. Thank you. Well, the service was impeccable. That was why Uncle was the boss. You're welcome. It is good to see each of you celebrating such an occasion here. High school was in session today, wasn't it? Fire that you turned this into a habit. It is my honor to serve you tonight. Pulled out a tiny notepad from his apron pocket. Put a pen to it. Uncle's ready to take your order. Ironically, Uncle usually clocked out of employee mode when dealing with you or your neighbors. But today he decided to do waitering even harder than normal. Thanks, Uncle. Q took a long, slow sip of their water. They put the cup down and opened their mouth. Woohoo! Party, party. Chang finally managed to pry her fingers open for a minute anyway. She held up her hands. This is our night. Wonderful. And how about this? The drinks will be on me. They won't go on the tab. Free drinks again? When Uncle said everybody in town deserved to be treated as a neighbor, he took it seriously. I'm only getting water. I'll get some apple cinnamon tea, please. That's fine. And you? You reply to him. Mm. Very nice. I'll get that for you in a moment. When Sans returned into his pockets, he casually left to go put that in. Ran to run after class. Oh, cool. I would have wanted to see him today. Guess it didn't work out like that. Q gave a shrug with her arm their head wasn't directly laying against. Jen leaned her chest over the table. She asked about what happened with the seriousness of asking for government secrets. How is he? Did he say a lot or anything? He was okay. Okay. So today's the day we first met. 4 years ago, remember? Happy anniversary to us. Jen lifted up the glass from behind the sloshing water in front of her face, saw a glint of silver she was skirting. Happy anniversary, Tamrick. Thanks, Tamrick. Alright, told Fran. Good for you. You didn't do it at our celebration dinner, and that's the best time to do it. Chang put her glass down again. It had more weight than it seemed at a glance. She only picked it up for drinking from now on. The party in the booth was interrupted when Yusuf visited again. He had a new pair of drinks on his platter. He laid out the gifts with gusto. You're almost surprised he hadn't spun the serving plate for extra pizzazz. Here you are, my treat. Thank you, that's nice. You're welcome. Oh, and thank you to Fran's mama, too. She's paying for the rest of it. Ah, yes, thank you, waiter. Good work. I don't have anything for you, Q, but you do for Fran. That's what counts. You put in the order for dinner then, after you're properly settled into the little nook. Someone at some point said something that made someone else think of what happened during a past visit to the same place. The whole conversation turned into reminiscing. He hadn't forgotten how those two nearly sent Mama on a wild goose chase the first time she tried to find the diner. The image of a much younger Tamrick and Q confidently pointing to opposite streets flashed in your mind. Shaking lamp came out of you. Fifth graders should not give directions. The waiter, host, manager, owner, Yusuf himself happened to be the topic of your tales at the same moment dinner was served. He had massive portions of food onto the table, each set in front of its owner. Got exactly what you ordered. Exactly. The endless stuff that had changed since you come here, the recipes and quality of the dinner table stayed the same. Maybe that was the reason guests continued to come to it year after year, not in spite of things being the same old, because it was a little slice of the familiar. It also probably helped the food had a magical way of bringing people together. Creating truces, lifting spirits, it was practically a universal good. At least as long as people were hungry. Q and Sam had played friends for an hour, maybe it was two. But picking at half-empty plates, the mood strained again. It always did with them these days. Damn. It was just how it was. Sure, you could try to avoid change by serving 1,000 identical helpings of french fries, but nothing could really last eventually. They'd be in and gone, and then what? Q claps again. They'd only lifted their head to eat. Jump down the dredge of teas for a good measure. What are you gonna do after this? I'm gonna walk. I am too. Wait, really? Tamaki Q wanted to do the same thing, and you didn't have to adjust it? Your heart beat faster. It's in the park. Tamrick, not the neighborhood. I'm not going to the neighborhood either, Q. Tamrick glanced towards the window, toying with her bangs. I want to see the bridge. It's right by here. Right, never mind. Obviously, they'd go their own ways. Your already dead hopes exploded into a pile of dust. The two of them turned to stare at you. They expected you to pick between them. Your anniversary dinner was done. They were back to normal. Damn. So, voice, how you feel about this now? How you feel about your choice? I don't make the best choices. I mean, we all knew this was gonna happen sooner or later. With how they are with each other, you had to know that there was just They're just gonna go two different ways. I think it's kind of bad that they just put the character in the middle, but I do see why, because you know. Trying to find legitimately compromise, and it's just I now know why I'm going to nickname Tam. I now know I'm going to do that. So much trouble. Okay. Just gonna stay here a little longer. You're getting anywhere near that. You've been together for a meal, and that was enough. Now this trail would splinter across the dark mountain. So, um, GB did put out another thing, and it is that there is a possible scenario for a third game. But after this game, she's going to take a break and make another game. They were like, there is a possibility I come back to this and make a third one. She's like, I do have an idea of it, but I want to make another game that's not part of this, you know? So there is a possibility of a third game coming. There is that possibility. Whoops. Dan went live. I had to go lurk. I really will be. Now the trail will splinter across the dark mountain. Alright. I'm sorry, Fran. So this was how your day was gonna end, on your own after everything. Obviously the plan hadn't been to leave you with nobody all along. It was just too bad for everyone that it was the only option you could see. And your friends had to stick to their guns. There was no way in the world one would decide to stay while the other left for real. Either they both wait with you, or neither would. You understood that deep down before you said a thing. It was hard always being in the middle. I'm going. Bye. Q kicked their legs over the edge of the seat and jumped to their feet. The Tamrock stream rolled past them. They barely had time to move out of the way. I'll see you later, Fran. That's a promise. Pressed her back against her and keeping her head low, Tamrock sped away. Meanwhile, Q snatched their jacket off the seat and stormed out, making an entire show of it. Leaves rustled on the trees while Bugs sang The Son of One Ninth Grader Going Home joined in, like another instrument to the Song of Autumn. Another fall, another year, another chapter in the stunning story of Franny Second. You've flipped through hundreds of pages already. Each had left an impact. Choices from ages back remained stuck to you, a permanent mark that faded only as you got older. They lived in your mind, shaped the future. Every new decision you made added to your experience. That was kind of what growing up was. Golden Grove was still your galaxy that wasn't going to stop tomorrow, or in a week, or when the season eventually ended. You could be certain. When you got up in the morning, you can imagine what would happen hour by hour. You had a schedule, you had plans, you had homework and chores, you had friends. You were a regular in a lot of other people's days. For right now, this was your life. I don't know what this is. This little reset position thing. I don't know what that is. What? I'm clicking it. It's doing nothing, by the way. Can y'all hear me clicking? It says reset positions. And it's just like a little... I don't... If it resets choices, oh my god. The horror. I will at some point do a... So if no one knows, I got a game, courtesy of Voice, called Don't Scream. That will be the ASMR that I do. That is the ASMR that I will do. And I legit, I told everyone, and I'm telling everyone again, I will be the reason why we all lose. I am the reason why we would lose. No one can tell me otherwise. I jump too easy in games. But on another note, I do believe we have a full party to play it. I also played a little bit of it. Oh my god. I still want to do a mukbang. But on that note, this is the only memory we have called Assistance. Sunshine glittered freely over Golden Grove that day. Since you woke up, there had barely been a cloud in the sky. Your trip home from school had been bright. It might have been too much light going on to your head, but it actually didn't feel that cold. You barely listened once for almost an hour. All your classes would be going on till then. You'd see Q then. But it lets an act pause in your schedule. You need to change and would be walking. So you had to save some time for that. That left you too long too long to do nothing and not enough minutes to really get into anything. Probably couldn't finish a single homework assignment. Shamrock had an entirely open afternoon, you're pretty sure. No matter what Shamrock was going to be up to. The two of you didn't get to leave school together, so you never heard. Grabbing your phone, you started texting with Tamrick would be your plan for this little break. When you clicked it open, a digital bubble greeted you from inside of the screen. You had an unread message. It was Tamrick. What's with that face? Fran, Omi and Oppa are making me do chores all day. I'm raking right now. If you want to come say hi, you can. I'll be here. You're so lucky to have me. I'll help. Yes. Thank you. Well, you figured out what to do before leaving, raking. You put the phone down again, smiling. You went through crooked opening, down creaking stairs, grabbed a jacket off a bent rack, then opened the front door. A quiet cul-de-sac was waiting on the other side. Under the blue sky, leaves danced across the tarmac. Those were the troublemakers. You guys drifted over Q's home, the road in town, and finally the woman abode. Shamrock was bent over, raked to the ground. However, her head was raised. She'd been keeping an eye out for you. And a smile was prepared for when you'd arrived. You strolled to the edge of the gray house. Hi, Fran. Hello. Shamrock's outfit, that was not what she'd worn to school. It reminded you of how she dressed in 5th grade. Overalls, a thick shirt, and rubber boots. Sturdy material that wouldn't easily get ripped and snagged. These were work clothes, something she wasn't afraid to get dirty, even if they did have cute patterns. All she was missing to complete the set was a scarf. It seemed like such a long time ago when Tamrick looked for special reasons to get fancy like a tea party. Do I need to go grab that clip and play it on stream? Now she wore delicate pieces every day and had to be given a specific purpose to dress more outdoorsy, such as spending half a day cleaning. Tamrick had also taken her headband off and put contacts in. Her messenger bag was sitting on the porch. She kept the rake standing tall, securely gripping in both hands. Her fingertips were already getting red. You're really doing it, thanks. Where's the other rake? In the backyard. I appreciate it. My family's gotta do this before the leaves pile up even more. You know Omi has a bad hip, not to mention Oppa has his rheumatism. Show off the clip? How did I edit it? Huh? All I did was clip the actual part. Give me a moment. I didn't fabricate anything, sir. Just so everyone can like watch this again. That 12 eliminations say it fucking otherwise. So, what was that about not sweating? Huh? Tamrick's voice rose as she gave an impassioned explanation. They told to break their backs raking leaves, but the job still gotta be done. Leaves don't bank themselves up, I wish. Sounded like she was reciting exactly what her grandmother had said when tasking Tamrick with this responsibility. And, could you go get that rake? Yeah. You got between your houses and hers. There was an old rake for a full grown person leaning by the back door. Maybe Grandpa used it when his wasn't so bad. The chip paint, bent prongs, and general oldness of the rake seemed like his style. It was heavier than a metal fan attached to a pole would deserve to be. You couldn't lift the tool carelessly or you'd regret it. That thing would be wielded as a weapon. Turn the rake using 2 hands and return to the front. You return receipt around the chair. Thank you, Fran. She stamped her foot alongside an ant hill-sized leaf pile. That was the sum of her progress so far. After this, I'm going doing the back. Then I'm just going to dust the house. It's a good time to get ahead. Now that was a true homeowner spirit. Tamrick smacked her tool against the grass. She resumed her efforts to whip the leaves into shape. A round shape, you matched her moves. She didn't speak much, you didn't either. Crunching and scraping, crunching and scraping. Teeth was a fitting description for the end of the rake. For appearance in action, it sounded like the leaves were getting eaten up. The earthy scent of them rose with the wind. The repetitive motions were meditative. Despite the low temperature, thin patches of sweat formed on your neck and forehead. There you were in the little town you'd lived in for years, and raking a lawn in your own little neighborhood. It was the tradition every autumn. No matter where you went in Golden Grove, there'd be people blowing leaves or raking by hand. On a forested mountain, that was what fall was about. You had memories of your own mama working in the yard while the sun set. She had to wait for work to be done for a chance to do chores. Mama tried to make raking fun whenever you joined her. There was a lot a kid could do with a whole heap of leaves. And eventually you gathered a nice big pile at the center of the Moomin lawn. And Tarek wiped her brow. Mount chore came up past her knee. Phew. We dig in. She pressed her palms into the top of the rake for support. With that pull propping her up and the way her eyes never moved from the target, Tarek would have made a good scarecrow. The scrapbook of your mind flipped to particular page automatically. First moment you seen Tamrick, at the time just a golden-haired girl bursting out of a pile of leaves so similar to this one. That was years ago now. Yeah, I remember it a lot. That'd been a lot of fun. It was a magical day. Jerry took some steps back, but Renna stayed set on her original goal. Mostly, for a split second, her gaze flicked towards you. Then she flew towards the pile. Jerry left boots first hanging in midair. She tossed her rake aside. Whoosh! A leaf explosion went off when Tamarick landed. What? An old spirit of pure mischief had possessed Tamarick. You lobbed a handful of leaves into her face. Grab a handful of leaves and flung them high. An intense, waterless splash flight commenced. Jarek wasn't afraid to play dirty, since when was nature spotless? She used her arms and legs to kick up a storm of leaves. You retaliated with equal force. You whooped and cheered like a couple of kids. At some point, you wound up out of breath, sprawled across what remained of the gathered leaves. Your chest heaved as you watched some clouds inch across the sky. Jarek tapped her shoes against each other. The dull knocking invited you to look over at her. Hands were clasped over her stomach. Shards of plant matter were pressed into her clothing, hair and skin. She was smiling. Sharp remained a forest girl at her core. What a leaf. For some reason, your hand was shaking. For the same reason, Tamarick went stiff. Oh. There you got it. You used the edge of your pinky to brush her hair into place. Tamarick's eyes stayed towards the sky. She gave a little sigh. A friend thinks. I wouldn't have done this totally alone. And I probably wouldn't have done it with anybody else either. Her bashful grin made her heart race. You adored Tamarick. She was wonderful whatever she did, and it was more wonderful that she liked doing it with you. Then your phone vibrating cut in. That was cute, 100%. They were gonna say it was almost time for Billy. If only you could bet on stuff like that. Class soon. See you there. See you too. When you went to put the phone away, it reacted by trembling. You couldn't abandon it now. By the way, 3 letters floated in front of you, so assuming yet with so much possibility, what else could be up? You leaned into the screen. Another text appeared. Remember I could see the neighborhood from my room, right? Where do you think I've been? Your gaze snapped towards the red house. And there in the second floor window was the silhouette of a human being. You could swear you saw a peace sign pressed against the glass, but it might have been in your mind. Sorry for also living here and looking with my eyes. Your whole body froze except your face. That went hot. You blew him a kiss. You couldn't help but stare at you. You screamed. You started laughing again. You just waved. You shook your head. Too bad for them. Sitting around at home while you had fun. Quick, you stuck your hand in front of Derek's eyes. She didn't need to know. Fran, what's going on? Sharon craned her neck. Her eyebrows were as flat as the empty road. She switched back and forth to get herself sitting upright. Legs crossed, hand on her knees. Sharon looked at what was directly in front of her, the Lynn house. Her gaze cut straight past where you lived over to the opposite side of the cul-de-sac. That didn't mean she noticed the hidden watcher in the window. What? But she did always like I Spy. Sharon slept soundlessly. Her throat seemed to be closing. She lifted a shaking hand pointing to the second floor of her neighbor's home. Then a shout broke through. That's their room. That's their room. That's cute. They could see us. He said again, feeling fine. For Tamarick, it was more of a process. Yeah. Striving to get to her feet, Tamarick managed to make more of a mess of things. She slid against leaves and kept having to grab your arms. You sent another glance towards Q, but now they disappeared. You and Tamarick were actually alone. Maybe, for all you knew, Miss Tamarick and Miss Bowman could be taking glimpses through the blinds. Tamarick had resumed her painting, though for an entirely different reason. I'm gonna fix the pile, then we'll be done. Yeah. So you repaired what had been destroyed. It didn't take long. Tamarick kept out her nose. If she was a teapot, she'd been ready to pour. I got her in the backyard too. That's way worse. I need to start working super fast. Thanks for helping, but you got your own stuff to do, huh? Uh-huh. You went across the grass of Tamarick's lawn and yours. You pushed the gate open and went home for a pit stop. For anything else, you got changed. Your outfit for practice was... When you poked your head outside again, Tamarick wasn't in the front yard. She was probably working behind the house still. The massive leaf pile on the moving lawn looked a little like an animal asleep in grass. You grabbed your bike and a helmet and headed out. It was probably funny to see a teen in a leotard on a bike. But it didn't get in the way of your pedaling, so whatever. 10 minutes later, you made it to town. Rolling under the iconic Golden Grove Arch, the dance hall was at the end of the road. Along the way, you stared into the windows you passed. Behind the glass, you could see the tiny, self-contained world of each building, each totally different from the other. Every store had character, but every one of them was only here. You also saw flashes of yourself reflected back at you. But you left all that behind as you stopped at your destination, Golden Grove's only dance hall. Inside the grandiose recital room created a flawless backdrop for a row of flawlessly poised ballerinas. This place hadn't changed since you'd begun taking lessons there. Updates to the original structure had to be avoided. Refurbishment would simply ruin the It was present in time when you were a part of it. Trying to change yourself became harder. In impression to, or perhaps in representation of, the look and presentation, the hall had stifling atmosphere. There was thick with nervous sweat and anticipation. My words are getting jumbled, and it is annoying me. At least there were friendly faces waiting for you. You made eye contact the moment you'd enter. You searched for Bianca next and found her in the middle of the action naturally. Then your instructor swept into the center of the wooden floor. Clapping, you took your place at the bar. Focus dancers focus. Class is beginning. She directed her students to do each step of the basic routine. You completed hundreds of times. Proper dancing came about through slow, gradual refinement, getting slightly more flawless with every practice. That's what it took for most skills, not only ballet. You kept doing it over and over and over until it was second nature. Till it became difficult to even imagine that you could stop. These ballerinas certainly didn't show signs of giving up. They flowed in uniform arcs, turned with rippling swirls, graceful, strict balance. Nearly everyone had reached the same level of proficiency in this part of the class. The essentials, there weren't children fumbling around in oversized tutus anymore. But there were still those who elevated the standard to a higher state. The way Q could move was simply correct. Their legs were steadier, their arms were straighter. Other dancers aimed to find form, while Q existed as a living how-to image. They were so wonderful it was generally distracting. Practice came to an end with a traditional show of appreciation for her teacher. She spoke as students curtsied. Don't forget, soon our class will shift schedules to include recital practice. Next year's show had recently been cast. It was semi-controversial to have you as the so-called leading lady, but some people acted as if your entire identity was a controversy, and you gave the strongest performance. Spotlight was yours to have, if you wanted it, which you did. As for a final reminder, the teacher mentioned that even if you weren't performing, she still expected you to be present for every lesson. That was pointed, and the edge was directly aimed at Q. You had your damp base. Raking was way less tiring. Gradually, the room began to clear out. You felt more comfortable with extra space. Somebody cracked a window in the stuffy car. You barely stepped away from the bar before Q came over, jacket in hand. Fran. Q nonchalantly slid their arms into their coat as they spoke. A smile put at your lips. What a cool kid. Ready to play baseball? Baseball? They clicked their tongue and pushed the side of their head. So silly. Duh, that's not what you do in a dance hall. What was it again? Q put an exaggerated think face. Their fists rested under their chin. Oh, that's right, you dance. How about we do that? They wanted to dance with you. Would you mind staying a little longer with me? Obviously. Nice. The dance for two was interrupted by Bianca, her excusing herself. I need to speak to you, Q. You do? Yes. Was Bianca seriously planning to rehash the You Should Audition conversation that happened on the first day of school? It had to be about ballet. That was pretty much the only thing these two could talk about. Sure, they were living in the same town, going to the same school, and both 14. All that might seem like a lot, but really it meant nothing. Q couldn't get along with every person in Golden Grove, not anymore anyway. Your heart clenched remembering the stress public performances caused Q during your childhood. For years, adults promised Q that it would feel easier in time. That had become an unintended lie. Didn't get better. Recitals only became more of a strain on Q the older they got. For multiple reasons. It's too late now, but for the recital after the next one, you should try out for one of the lady roles. What? If you worried, I'd audition to dance the male role opposite you. She declared her intentions boldly and brashly, as if she was already playing the role of the gentleman in real life. I could handle it, and I'd be perfectly happy performing as a prince or whoever. To such an offer, Q could only say, Huh. This really was the first day of school all over again, and since you'd seen this rerun already, you knew what happened what happened from here. Bianca pushed back. I'm trying to be helpful. Thanks. But Fran is in the show, and they're not a lady. I understand it's possible to do that. It's just, I don't want to. If you ever want to do something, you'll have to live with the fact a role in a show doesn't decide who you actually are. Yeah, and I should believe in myself more too. Then all my dreams would come true. Bianca let herself be brushed off without much fuss. This was a place of grace, not battle. She left. The door shut behind her. Q released a sigh. They stared at where Bianca had gone. Their whole face bent uncomfortably. Q stopped trying for things. People stopped trying with them. They wouldn't have to let anyone down this way. Still, Q had made disappointing people a part of their personal brand. They moved on from the encounter smoothly enough. It was back to business. You still want to dance? Yeah, we're gonna dance. Whoops. Ugrinda lifted your hand. Q gave a skirtless curtsy before accepting. What a charming partner. Past debts and all that. Just have fun. You and Q were in the same dance lessons, but they had to take the lead. Q began to hum to the beat of their steps. You countered by bobbing your head and swaying your shoulders, making a groove all of your own. A friend? Yes, we're dancing, aren't we? Kept shaking it. Your feet slid across the polished wood floor. You even threw in a clap. Q snickered. Okay, then. They went with us. Q swung their hands side to side, snapping their fingers, and shimmied after you. You raised an arm, and Q did too. You jumped into a 90-degree turn. They did it the other way. Whatever you were doing wound up more tangled than ballet. Your chest brushed against their back, and vice versa. Q's puffy jacket was a constant companion. It was amazing. The entire time, you ignored the possibility that the teacher could come back to watch this. But after you had your time to mess around, Q tripped up with suggestion. Let's do a lift. So you mean you'll be doing the lifting? Of course. All right, I'm ready. Q turned once more before they synced with your strides. You let yourself be lost to the dance. Come on, 1, 2, 3, lift. They bounded behind you and caught you by the hips. Q held tight to your waist and did exactly as they promised, lift. The ninth grader got you off the ground. They done it. You strengthened in layer pose, then your entire body clenched. Each muscle solid stone. They stared at you as you watched them. Your entire torso was boiling. You really stole the show for it, like a burglar would. They chuckled through heaving breaths. Then Q went rigid. Their gaze stayed dead set to one side. Q's dark irises shook in their skull. Something was there. You turned your head and were met with a smirking, hovering at your eye level and a mole under that. You knew who that was. Baxter Ward. Despite giving Q half a heart attack, he was simply standing there, draped in a full-body trench coat. The Baxter pushed it open to also casually tuck his thumbs into his pockets. Q robotically set you back on the ground. Disengage indefinitely. Your core burned. Baxter was dripping in only 2 colors, black and white. Even the rings on his fingers matched that theme. A figure of controlled contrast. Except for a certain little aspect, a piece of himself that he couldn't change. Part of him that people would focus on the most. Baxter had brown eyes. He shifted them between you and Q, speaking as if this was a conversation. Apologies for distracting you. I should have spoken up. But what kind of dancer would I be if I stepped on your toes? Grinning, Baxter took his long stride closer. He wasn't the audience anymore. He was part of the show. What was he doing here? Well, obviously for dance practice. He still took ballroom, but not now. Not when you and Q were at the hall. There had been a combination of coincidence. The two of you decided to stay late, and Baxter had come early. Now the 3 of you wound up coming together. I had to go back. He really took that black and white thing, seriously. You know that? He really took it very seriously. I just realized it's a fucking white beanie. Why not? A smirk still played on Baxter's face while he toyed with the end of his half bangs. The air was saturated in darkness. He hadn't let a single strand of gray escape the dye. Baxter slid his half-open gaze onto you again and said to Q. There's something incredibly mysterious with the way his eyes were basically the only part of his face that moved. Q crossed their arms and glared. No longer were they an elegant dancer, so what were they? Past Q had basically been Baxter's boss, and the present Q was just another unimpressed freshman at school Baxter didn't attend. Mr. Black and White himself, you ruined everything. They didn't even say hi to this man. Nice to see you again, Baxter. He did want to say hi to that man. Good evening, Franny. Somehow him just saying your name felt important. So, there's a Baylor recital coming up, isn't that right? Best of luck with your auditions. Are you... He spat out a couple words before clicking their tongue. Clenched hands shook in front of their chest. Baxter and his black hair and bad lines ticked Q off. An absentee parent with no insight into the life of their teenage child couldn't have played this worse. If your neighbor could dismiss Bianca with a single syllable, when they felt the need, that wasn't physically possible with Baxter, not for Q at least. The wildly fluctuating enunciation that Q spelled this out for Baxter. The roles are filled, but I'm not in it. The word idiot was a silent presence in the sentence, like the K and knife. Ah, Baxter flinched. When it came to Q, he had enough with the silent crap for losing all his expert manners and shoving those dancing feet directly into his mouth. Already so soon? I didn't realize. I apologize again. What a graph. A Jeff. Q blankly stared out at him. That regret meant nothing to them. Are you getting it for yourself? Nurse was Baxter for a spell, shockingly devoid of certainty. It was pretty painful. He really did have the vibe of a part-time father or school counselor. As if he had the legal responsibility to keep being here, there, making chit-chat, no matter how little the other person wanted to participate. Our lesson's over. I gotta go. I'm pretty sure I said no to you when you said something about it. Pretty sure that person doesn't really like getting gifts. Am I wrong? Of course, have a nice day. His glance brushed over you as they turned away. They silently requested he follow. Have a nice lesson, bye. The echoes of your footsteps kept away pure silence in the dance hall. Outside in the smothered sunset, Q pulled their phone from their pocket, pressed a finger to the glass but didn't do anything with it. The fact that that is true, that no matter what I said, just because I said I wanted to, I was gonna... Eventually, the home screen automatically went black. Q shoved the thing back into the jacket. He wouldn't care. He? Did Q mean Ren? It was hard to imagine any other he coming to mind. They definitely weren't considered texting their dad. Q stopped to where their bike was locked up. They crashed and began to twist the numbered lock knobs. He goes a little noise out of them. Q's bars were corroded. They had to fight against two right thumbs to input the code, and it was not helping. Ugh. They wrenched the cable to the side and made a real racket, but Q failed to snap the dirty metal. Stupid. They stopped there completely. Girls had curled to the ground, slowly exhaling puffs of white. Then they looked to the sky, staring at a patch of orange that could still be seen through the clouds. I'm not going to go to the neighborhood or a store or any of that. I'm going to the top of the mountain. He pointed to Golden Grove's peak. Their sleeves swooshed. That's the solution to all our problems. Q reached for the lock again. Their hands were working, heads spinningly quick. Yes, I will bike to the furthest corner of this land and nothing can stop me. The lock clicked open. They had found the probable key. Let's try it. Yeah. Got ready to move. They dashed their bike towards you while you prepared your own ride. Here we go. Q kicked off the journey by shoving off the sidewalk. They rolled in a straight line from the door of the dance hall, aka directly into the street. An ear-shutting honk went off. Too late. Q remembered that occasionally cars did drive on this road. They shouted over the blaring horn and swerved left. Sorry. This journey was almost stupidly short, with an ending in the hospital. Q laughed it off and kept going ahead. Shoot, I can't die yet. I have something to live for. We gotta climb a mountain. Whoever was behind the wheel led you past two. Might as well, since they already had slammed to a stop. You sped after Q, waving your thanks to the driver. Past the initial speed bump, things were smooth sailing. You and Q knew this town as well as you understood each other. You were on a roll. Q's other wheels weren't that. The cherished silver detailed ride they supported as a kid. Q had literally physically outgrown them. Their legs would have had to do contortionist levels of bending to fit these days. Her bike was mainly black, though golden bands shone around the joints and center of the gears. But it was Q's favorite color in elementary school. Mr. Muslin picked up that bike as a birthday present because of Q's love for gold. But the truth was, Q didn't love it anymore. The color of first place of their hometown itself. Q didn't want that. No, Q's favorite was silver, the color of starlight, and their old bike. Despite that these innocent color theory, Q's ride was their golden ticket to all of Golden Grove. On that ride, no store, park, or other point of interest was more than an hour away. Because when it came to handling a bike, any bike, Q had managed to get even better over the years. The trouble Q got into with the car was only the end of their issues. It was simply the beginning of the problems they caused to others. Q tore through this small town, hopping curbs, speeding over sidewalks, and pedaling with no hands. They were putting everything that frustrated them in the past and making it eat their dust. The dark hair whipped around, sparkling eyes, and captivated you. Rush swirled by. It was like something out of a dream. It was defiantly blurry and vague enough. Energy ebbed and flowed from your head to your feet, going over dips and downhills. It was the pull of gravity, the momentum of speed, the rush of blood. You lifted from their seat, using their full strength and length of their legs to pedal. Cubs looked through unimpressed looks at Q. Well, they tried to. You didn't stick around long enough for it to land. If they had played around less, you would have gotten to your actual destination sooner. Every minute it got darker. Be enough time to do the Red Fox Ridge Trail before the sunset. At night, it got pitch black in the woods. Ultimately, that question didn't matter. When you reached the bridge, an entirely different concern was dropped on you. Not getting hit by a car or running out of daylight, but a different thing. A thing you hadn't considered, but really should have. It started to rain. Mist and wind-blown foliage gathered around your legs. The way ahead twisted between trees before vanishing into the embrace of the forest. Q hopped off their bike. They led it towards the stone path. The train clicked. When Q rode fast, that sound morphed into a satisfying hum. Those rattling, the tick-tick-tick of Q's uncertain approach was almost ominous. Q winced repeatedly. Water splattered across their cheeks. Zero trees covered the bridge. Some more droplets got through the canopy. They used the only defense they had had against the force of nature, their hood. They pulled it completely over their head. Rain had the power to meet the entire world underneath it. Parades, weddings, impulsive hikes, whatever. It insisted people not get too excited. Why couldn't one thing work out for them? Hugh's voice echoed from the depths of their fur-lined cave. Let's go back, Brigitte. Oh? It was stunning how fast things could change. How soon that what you were doing could be over. You could have blinked and missed the moment when Q went from looking forward towards the peak and when their gaze dropped to the ground. Back home? Yeah, our neighborhood. It'd be dangerous to go up a mountain in the rain. We wouldn't be able to see anything anyway. Q spat that out. They were picking the safe choice, but making no mistake, they were not happy about it. It made sense. There realistically wasn't much else to do. It wasn't like you were going to do the hike by yourself. Despite making the call to conclude the expedition, he stopped to look over the side of the bridge. The little stream underneath was going off more than a hot fryer full of cold batter, just splattering like crazy. You should hang around at the bridge again sometime. It's pretty cool. Okay. He toasted the bike handles. It was about time they coaxed their steed on home. Your hopes for today were officially drawn down the drain. Two of you crossed Golden Grove again, up and down the same roads, heading the opposite way, moving slower, remaining silent. That couldn't be said for the rain, which kept increasing in speed and frequency. Wind cut to your core. As it passed, the water soaking you came alive with a cold 10 times worse than before. This was not leotard weather. It'd be laughable if it wasn't so miserable. Q had these paper-thin jumpsuits, jackets, a dream, and stiff upper lips. Stiff because they froze. When you finally reached Main Street, Q stared at the town they'd spent their entire existence in. Hey, Fran. Yeah? Did you ever see my old friend, Guy, the forest boy? He didn't go to our school, but would mysteriously appear around the woods sometimes. Yeah. He was never with anybody else. He'd run away from people. Do you think he's made any friends? But if he had opened their mouth, they might have given you a me too. As it was, they made a soft noise, that was it. They didn't give anything else about Guy or any other topic for the rest of the trip. You and Q sloshed through the streets of Golden Grove until you reached the neighborhood. There you paused in the center of the road. It'd been a long trip. Goodbye. You held onto Q's arm. Sorry, friend, don't feel like it. I'll see you later. Q turned their back to you and disappeared into the misting rain, sawed whole by it. What a downer way for a day to end. Your home was pitch black until empty. You flicked on some lights and cranked up the heat. Water kept drifting off you. No, he bounded up the stairs. When you reached your room, you were finally allowed to remove the clothing that had been trying to fuse with your skin. Then you changed, wrapped yourself in towels and blankets, and you did not come out even after you were dry. Mama came to your door the moment she returned from work. You were half asleep when she knocked. Hello, friendly home. I'm home. Ready for dinner? We got leftovers. Ah, yes, leftovers. The most exciting meal for an overworked adult because she didn't have to cook it again. Microwave away. Managed to drag yourself to the cocoon you created in order to receive nourishment. In the kitchen, you and your mama sat together around the dinner table. Plates of steaming food were set between you. Mama made conversation between bites. How's belly class? Did recital practice begin yet? Let's tell her how things have been. They were hunched over pushing the mushy food. You were hunched over pushing the mushy food around your plate, having zero appetite. I didn't understand why you couldn't eat in your room. What? I understand why you couldn't eat in your room or at a different time than her. It wasn't like the food was rushed. However, a buzz came, an unexpected guest. You got a text. Stabbed a piece of potato, refusing to acknowledge the attention-seeking buzz. Mom pretended not to notice the thing same way you did. The rule was clear, no phones at the dinner table until you were done eating. But you'd barely finished thinking that before another disruption came. It wasn't from your side of things. Mom's phones went off seconds after you received a text. Oh. Her too? Didn't full-grown adults know better than to message at mealtimes? It better not be your work. Mom was off the clock. Embarrassing, but also odd. But we put a pause to the rules and check our phones. This might be more than a coincidence. That was good enough with you. The movie passed with 100% support from the second council. Sparks were put down, replaced by cells. You opened your recent notification. Mama shared her reading journey aloud. It's our neighbor, Mr. Lin. Oh no, your text is from the other Lin adult. Q's mom apologetically asked if they were with you. Why would Miss Lynn need to know that? Mama continued, there was definitely a non-coincidental thing to simultaneously text. He's asking if Q was having dinner with us tonight. She blinked and lowered the phone. Mom stared at the table stuff you do. No, they certainly aren't. Not tonight. Not today, though. They're always welcome. Do you know anything about this, Franny? I was Q at the ballet class. Your sense of the entire world fell away. You disappeared deep inside your mind. A miserable realization had dawned on you. That was why they gave up so easily. Q hadn't accepted things. They'd been in the neighborhood and never went home. Well, maybe. Not being at their own house or your house didn't officially mean they'd done something that drastic. But you know, Q, and a voice from within told you that was exactly what happened. Franny? Mom prompted you again, more urgently this time. The look on your face probably gave away the answer. You had plenty of thoughts on the topic. You took a breath and explained what you know. Mama listened carefully to your insight. You went over your time with Q, from meeting at the dance hall to the plans you made to parting ways in front of this very house. Q didn't want to go home. That is a horrible feeling to have. Mama tapped at her phone. Your guess was that she let the lens know Q hadn't been at your place today. Then she put the device down to press fingers to her chin. Her lips burst. Her eyes shifted every which way. Is there any chance they're visiting Tamarick or Ren? Maybe Q's with the Murrays. The rest interrupted Mama's theorizing. Speaking of the devil came from Tamarick herself. Apparently she received a strange text from Miss Lynn asking if Q was at her house. Unexpected is that, right? She was wondering if something was up. This really wasn't good. Q's parents were contacting every person they knew, whether it made literally any sense or not. Was that them? No, Tamarick messaged me. Q's not with her. The last glimmer of hope in Mama's face got washed away. So did the uncertainty, too. Many potential leads had failed. She pushed herself off the table and stood. The chair legs cried from the force. Mama's water cup nearly tipped over. I'm getting my coat. I can drive around town just to be safe. Stay there for a moment, trying to think. Rain continued to pour past the windows. A wall clock ticked and talked. Pushed it from your mind. What was going on? You could imagine Q turned back around to the mountain path during a storm at nighttime. Yum. I don't like avocado, so Q could barely tolerate the forest during the day. They had their secret hideout. Still, you doubt that possibility too. The backyard was right there, and Mr. and Miss Lynn had to have checked out the window before going on a messaging spree. I don't have a drink to hydrate with. I drank all my fucking drink already. Give me a moment. I got water. I got a giant freaking jug of water. And I do. Because not my fault I drank it all. Give me a moment. I'm pouring water. Really hope y'all can't hear the water pouring, because my god, that'd be really annoying. Definitely would make someone need to pee. You're welcome. Before going on a messaging spree, if Q wasn't with a friend either, then they would be somewhere in town. But where? Go to a convenience store or the diner. Hold on. I had to finish my Duolingo lesson. Alright, Setting memory the phone in your hand, Jerry's concerned text still displayed on your screen. She knew what was really happening to her and could help for sure, but Q's own parents hadn't explained the full situation to her. The adults were trying to handle it themselves. You'd wait. If Q wasn't found soon, you would increase the search party. For now, you'd keep your ideas to yourself. Sorry, I don't know exactly what's going on. That's okay, it's not your fault. Then a call came from the living room using the human voice technology. Franny, are you coming for the ride, or would you rather wait here? You grabbed your phone and left the kitchen. Mom had sneakers on while draped in her yellow cardigan. A purse and umbrella were tucked under her arms. She lingered by the door for you, one hand already on the knob. Really? Mom's exit was put on pause. She kept standing there looking at you over her shoulder. I assumed you want to come. No, I don't think it'd help. Sorry, Mom. That wasn't a total lie. You decided your efforts would be put to better use. Mama sighed softly. There was only one teen to be concerned about tonight, as far as she knew. Alright, let me know if you hear anything. Alright, your record of behaving clinched the win. Finally, she turned the handle around, and then Mama was gone. The house went silent. It was still. Time to move. You didn't bother scrunching for an umbrella. It'd only slow you down anyway. Threw your cold weather armor on and stopped to put on shoes. Then you were ready. Clearly shut the front door behind you. The rain that night could pass for a solid wall. At least by the looks of it. Drops came down non-stop, in countless layers that morphed together to create a single, vibrating mass. You burst straight through, moving like a shadow across the cul-de-sac. Any sound, your flashing footsteps, made you got smothered by the downpour. With no cover, you were entirely submerged in an airborne river. Gusts of wind added rapids into the mix. They knocked you to the left and back to the right. Human beings should not be walking in these conditions. Q, wherever you were, whatever you were thinking, better be ready for the new storm coming. Over a washed-out road, you charged directly towards the... town park. It was so dark, lights were distant blobs and fragile ripples on the ground. Your panting created a friendly, centric fog cover that made it even harder to make out anything. The only reason you managed to get where you need to be was because you'd lived there for 4 years. A newcomer would have gone turn around 10 times over. Main Street came into view eventually. It was hard to believe you'd been there only a few hours ago. Standing alone at the top of the hill, it looked different. Stood under the park gate, peering into the empty heart of town. Nobody should be there when things were like this. Not if they knew what was good for them. Fortunately, that description didn't apply to Q Lin. The constant pop of water hitting stone made you flinch. If it weren't for goosebumps across your skin, you'd be entirely numb by now. You ran forward. Paths went in circles, splitting off and reconnecting in nonsense order. The design goal for this mini forest was to be natural, spontaneous. You darted back and forth across the park grounds. Had you gone this way already? You whipped around, gasping for any sense of place. Everything looked the same. Walls of trees made it impossible to see beyond what was behind and what was ahead. You were back in, prodded by your own self to find a light at the end of this corn maze. And finally, you saw something. You could have mistaken it for just another tree that was somehow growing in the middle of a walkway. It had a solid squeezed-together trunk and was puffed out at the top. Q. They bundled up in their jacket. Underneath, that was a leotard. It was a horrifying realization. That had been terrible when you were leaving the bridge ages ago. But Q didn't have their bike in tow anymore, so they took the time to get that safely home. Someone forward towards them. Faster, faster. The rain hit harder. Your stiff lungs strained not to break into a million pieces. Q glanced up. You were close enough now to see their eyes. They'd seen you too. Q didn't close the gap. They remained rooted in place, their hands hiding in their waterlogged pockets. have no fucking clue. Why not? Pair of shadow silhouettes met. The only two people in the world who are in this park. Your impact on Q reverberated throughout their entire body. They struggled to carry the unexpected weight of another person. Q almost crumpled from it. Up close, Q looked like death. Their skin had a bluish tint at the center, and it was raw and red along each edge. Q's teeth clattered. That made them stutter. It wasn't easy for Q to reply to you for a lot of reasons. But don't cry. How could they ask that? They could barely speak. Your sobs continued. Bad enough it made you cough. Rubbed your face hard into their jacket. They're really here. Q's brain was full of fog, so it took a minute for them to realize that they disappeared in the night while it was pouring, and that other people were going to notice that happened eventually. And eventually Q put it together themselves. Crap, I forgot to lie to Mom and Dad that I was doing something normal, and I forgot to check my phone. They flicked a hand out in the weakest shrug imaginable. He was trying to play this whole thing off. Too bad you could feel them bitterly shiver. My bad. This is how I am. You know that. I mess up everything. Go home and tell everyone that. He said dipped low, being down for too long, their breathing was shallow. My parents shouldn't have told you, it's not your fault. Sorry, Fran. Q clasped a hand around your wrist. The only thing you felt was a change in pressure. Warmth came from their hold. He stopped pulling. Come on. Since you foolishly refused to abandon Q, they were inviting you along. And you weren't retreating now. You didn't want to lose sight of them for a minute. You quickly went with Q. They led you further into the park, and you reached the gazebo. That couldn't block the wind, but it did have a full roof to keep the rain away. A path light was situated close by, so you were out of the darkness as well. At least forever long, you could stay right there. Q flipped their hood down, openly, still being clipped. Well, here we are. What a terrible thing. We're both a loser. The very dry floor of the gazebo got rained on by a local storm. Q stretched their arms out, dripping all over the place. Wanna know why? I can't explain that. Their hands jerked in the air erratically. Gestures could help a speaker get their point across, but these only made it way more difficult to follow. I don't know what I was doing. I felt like not being home. I felt like not talking. So I came to the park. Incredible. I, Keelan, am a pain. I make life worse for anybody around me. That's that. What do you think you're gonna do about it? You looked at them, your expression uneasy. Q. Some reminder of your presence, showing them that a real person was here. It was enough. Q's arm dropped and sagged at their sides. They panted from effort. I'm sorry. I don't want to hurt anybody. They crushed their fingers into their forehead hard enough that their nails would leave a mark. I wish people wouldn't care so much. I'm not good enough to care back as much as my parents or you do. Now that someone was listening, Q's feeling couldn't be kept contained. They placed around the small enclosure of the gazebo. I wanted to go away for a while. I wanted to get to exist without having things I needed to do. Without having things I needed to think about or remember and not get in trouble for that. I want to give up at least sometimes. I'm tired. But it sucks because no one wants to let me disappear. I don't know why. They were going in endless circles, the same way you had when running through the park, except it was within Q's mind. There was an exit to find. They could never leave. Ad's gonna start in less than a minute. I changed, and maybe if I hadn't, I could make everybody happy instead like I used to. Maybe Ren and Baxter would still be here. Q stopped moving completely. The only movement was water streaming down their face. Maybe I wouldn't make you look like that, but... They gulped. Q's words had started to catch again. Their voice was shaking. It wasn't from the cold. That's not how it is, okay? Q has to be cared about less and wished to be cared about more. No, what they hoped for was to be understood. accepted, and if they didn't have that, then Q didn't want anything else. Concern from their parents, popularity at school, it didn't matter, not like this. They didn't have enough strength to hold you back. Instead, they leaned into you for support. Thanks, Fran. Q talking about their struggles, you being there for them through it. That didn't mean nothing like it would happen again. Part of this was a part of Q. It always would be. But you weren't going to push them away or leave them alone. You never could. Q shifted their body more to the side like you were cradling a big puppy in your arms. Your coat did give them an element of furriness. Q nuzzled against you. Your bodies were so close, the dampness between you made your clothes stick together. Hey, it's well. It's kind of means a lot that you'd come out because of this. You're a super good friend. The rain continued coming down around you. The two of you watched it happen. Compared to how long Q had been gone, and even how long it took for you to find them, this time the gazebo was a brief moment. Still, it felt like it held weight. Fabric of your lives took the words that had been said, and the glances exchanged and sucked them all into it. It was twice as heavy than it was before. Thanks, Ren, for a lot of stuff. Q loudly sniffed air into their nose for like 5 seconds. A race car revving up would have been less jarring. That is what that then. You know it. It is so cold here. What the heck? I'm not dressed for this. You'd think? Q repeatedly knocked their knees together to show how freezing they were. I'll take whatever my parents and your mama are gonna say. They lifted their chin. Q was back in action and bolder than ever. Let's get out of here. Q and you left the gazebo together. You felt awful the second you were under the rain again. You'd been through this already and did not have the strength to put up with it longer. Q enjoyed themselves at least. They had their face high, not flinching despite the droplets. Rain really did scare Q. Once you were out of the park, you'd still have to walk the whole way back to the neighborhood. Soon you arrived at the front gate. Main Street was straight ahead. A pair of headlights coming down the road left you blinded. Too bright, you covered your eyes with an arm, waiting for this to pass. It didn't, for some reason. From behind your sleeve, light kept blasting you. You were being treated like a criminal caught by a police spotlight. Who the hell is that? I can't even guess. They did a soggy snap. It's gotta be the government. Look at how black and shady it is. You're actually having trouble looking, actually. You had a brighter spot than you did, but above the rumble of an engine and endless patter of rain, you could hear a voice. Hello again, do you need a ride? Are you serious, Baxter? You stared at you, mouth open, you stared at them. You were two silhouettes, first lost in a storm and now within a bright light. You then floundered forward. They cut through puddles that went up to their ankles and got into the road, bringing you right along with them. Q had taken your wrist. Their hand repeatedly slipped from the car handle, but Q managed to tear it open. A delicate warmth dropped it out. You pair of filthy, freezing kids peered inside. Baxter was in the driver's seat, the hat and trench coat you'd seen him and were gone. Though he leaned towards the passenger side and smirked nonchalantly. It would help if you both went in the back. Q slammed the door in Baxter's face with a flick of the wrist. They didn't know what else to have expected, but it wasn't easy to accept. Where is up? What is down? This water had finally risen over your head, and your mind was lost in the current. The world's nicest taxi continued to idle, purring like a tuxedo cat. Q looked at you instead. Let's just do it, why not? You swallowed the lump in your throat, you had to. Q opened the vehicle's other side door and stalled again. They sucked only their head through to talk to the driver. Baxter, your coat's back here. So that was where it went. I know, sit on it. Huh? It's to cover the seats. I don't have any towels. His eyes took a detour to the back of their head. Mr. Millionaire's cushion were very valuable, but they climbed in. Alright. They took your numb hand again. You saw it happen more than you felt it, and Q tugged you along with them. Your knees gave way without much nudging. You lapsed into the back seat. Q just kept pulling. You wound up against their chest. There wasn't much space that was safe for your wet, floppy self to be. Somehow you gone from life as a drowned rat to sitting in a luxury vehicle on top of a trench coat. That could have cost as much as a non-luxury vehicle. Baxter began to drive, going who knew where. You couldn't see a thing outside, not only because it was night, not only because it was raining, but because the glass was tinted like Baxter was a celebrity. Every little motion made the real leather squeak, and it still had that new car smell people talked about. Well, you assumed that was what the estrangement scent was. Mom's car wasn't new when she bought it. Before the incident with a couple of soaking 14-year-olds, it must have been pristine in there. The trench coat towel could only do so much. Hey, you have a car? Q's tone was snippy, probably because they were finding out like this that Baxter had passed a massive life milestone, despite what just happened. In the gazebo, you and Q weren't there anymore. You'd return to the normal world. You knew stuff would happen again that made Q sad, that'd make them question themselves, but you didn't think it would be this soon. Except Baxter laughed way too much for such a basic question. You thought you even heard snoring. No, I don't. This is one of my parents' cars. I borrowed it. That's why I needed to hide the evidence as much as possible, at least. What? The bubble of tension popped. Q's teenage angst was no more. They launched themselves between the two front seats. You stole a car? Temporarily. It won't matter as long as they don't realize it. Don't worry, I've driven before. I got my student license last year. Damn, man. Q shook their head, giggling. It was easy to forget Baxter was actually a teenager with how formal he talked and everything. But then something like this happened that made it all too obvious. Did Q's parents seriously ask you to look at them? Baxter rushed over you through the rearview mirror. His brown eyes were one thing that never changed. Liz Lynn did send me a message. She wanted to know if Q was at my house. I double tapped. She did? Yes, it was surprising that I was a possibility for that. It came in recently. I had to guess. I wasn't the first or the fifth person she reached out to. A last resort, maybe. Since the situation was that dire, I decided to go on a drive. Perhaps I might notice something interesting. Q couldn't speak. They just made a small sound. From an outsider perspective, Baxter was low on Q's list of acquaintances. He was only on that list because of a shared history that became more ancient each day. But Baxter still cared. He dropped everything on nothing more than a hunch that Q could be somewhere in the rain. He secretly borrowed a car to do it. So why didn't Baxter try to seek Q on a normal day when they hadn't done something that could be dangerous? You didn't know. Baxter fussed with his bangs. His hair always fell around his face like a rain cloud. His natural color matched that description. Truthfully, I had responded to Miss Lynn's message. I went out directly. When Q first opened their mouth, not even a vague noise came out. They smacked their lips and tried again. And you are with me, I could tell her that much. You and I and then Franny came upon each other by luck, and you did not mean to worry anyone. Friends can fill in the timeline of when that happened and when you met themselves. I'll keep it a secret too, Starlight. Excellent. Q cracked a smile that whipped up the inside of the car more than cracking open the window would have. You rebels. Their drippy fingers were fused to their phone screen. Q was texting somebody. Alright, I told people I'm fine. And Ren knows the plan now too. Does he? And so me and Fran are hanging out in your big fancy car. Ren is so jealous. If anyone asks, he's gonna say it makes total sense we were here. Tell him thank you from me and hello. Okay. Members of a disbanded club could still have each other's backs. So where do you wish to go? You're not taking us home? Oh no, I'm merely a chauffeur. You tell me what to do. Crossing their arms behind their head, Q unfolded a grin. I've always liked you, Baxter Ward. This is why you're cool. Baxter smiled too, softer. He didn't take his gaze off the distant road. Glad to be of service. The three of you chatted about the next stop. Maybe Ren's house or another town. This day wouldn't change everything. You didn't believe that. Tomorrow, Baxter would go back to being gone. He wouldn't always get to look so happy. Baxter's eyes were on college, being grown and getting out of Golden Grove for good. Those kinds of thoughts were too far off for you and Q. Both of you lived in a world of parental oversight and puberty. You'd get to be there for Q day after day for many months to come. Though the worst times and the best, you appreciate every moment you shared because, at some point, it'd have to end. You didn't linger on that thought, but right now it was also a distant concept. You let your head drop against the back of your seat and stared out of Baxter's parents' car's window. You didn't have an outside target to focus on anymore. Q was already beside you. I do like how it just puts the butterfly on it because I picked it. Alrighty, though. Guess what? Oh! I can fucking move these! And the reset position is that. Okay. Hey, look, I figured it out! I figured it out. Figured what it meant. I just thought that these were like little things to be like at the bottom, you know, to give it like details. That's awesome though. On that note though, it is time to end because it is tiring and I'm hungry and I want food. The sticker things? Okay, voice, look. You see that? You know how much time I spent on this game? Just on this demo? Let me pull it up. I have what, 95.6 hours in this? Which is saying something because it's a fucking demo. Because I like to go through everything. Yeah. And those 95.6 hours, this is the first time I'm seeing that. So, take that as you want. I'm gonna raid out to Dan, because he's playing Minecraft, and I kind of want to go play it, too. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll do, like, my own little world. Play a little Minecraft thing. Maybe that's what I do on Monday, is play Minecraft. But I hope everyone enjoyed. I shall see you all tomorrow, where I will be playing Sons of the Forest with voice. Then on Wednesday it will be Fortnite, and then I just realized I didn't post this week's thing. I did not. Okay, look, I posted it. I completely forgot to hit that. Okay. I legit had it all typed up last night, and I thought I hit enter. I did not. Thursday is my time at Portia. Friday, we're going back to the actual our life. Always and beginnings. Beginnings and always. I always mix those up. But we'll be playing that. So we'll be going forward with that version now. And then Saturday is going to be Games with Reset. And then Sunday is off. And then we all do this back again on Monday.